Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Market Open. It is Tuesday, June 18th, 8:46 a.m. I am 1 minute late, and the amount of late comments, dude, this is good, though. It keeps me honest, dude. It keeps me so honest. At least Jeremy's on my side. He's like, you guys are brutal. You guys are brutal, but you know what? You should complain that I'm late because we have not even 1 minute to spare when we have to discuss what's happening in the pre-markets. And you guys know what's happening in the pre-markets. You guys know what's happening in the pre-markets. It's one of those days. We haven't had one of these days in a while, but we're having one of these days. And it's one of those days where you got to get ready to analyze what's going on. Palantir, the stock that has my heart. People say don't get emotional. Well, we're past that. We are past the friend zone, dude. We are there. Palantir, 25.18. The pre-market's up 0.64%. I have a lot of thoughts on what's happening on Palantir. We'll be discussing throughout the entirety of the show what's going on, why Palantir is up right now, and why I think this moment is happening right now for Palantir in terms of this breakout. We will also be having someone come on the channel at 9:45 a.m. Some of you may know him. He's on TD Ameritrade, the Schwab networks. He's on all those media networks. He'll be discussing his $31 price target. Stephen Goofile, I'm probably saying his name wrong, sorry about that, otherwise known as Sarge. So this guy, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen his videos here and there. He is the founder and president of Sarge LLC. He's been on the trading floor for 30 years. He actually served in the U.S. Marine Corps. He's been one of the more bullish people in traditional media that has been bullish on Palantir. So he's not really that big on social, but he's more in the traditional world. And he has a $31 price target on Palantir. So at 9:45, he'll be coming on discussing why he has that price target, what he sees in the company, and ultimately where he sees the company going. So very excited. A lot of stuff to discuss. Lots of stuff to get into. And, tomorrow the market's closed? Damn. I forgot. Yeah, it's Juneteenth. I forgot. Okay, so tomorrow the market's closed. So then we have to really enjoy today's show. We might go a little bit live later, go extra for the show. Given that tomorrow, damn, I forgot the market's closed tomorrow. That's gonna suck, dude. Well, we got to make the most of what we get today. So yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about Palantir. We have to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is down. One of the reasons Robinhood is down right now in the pre-market is because Bitcoin is down. So we will be discussing Bitcoin as well. Palantir right now 25.19. We have to discuss big tech. Nvidia is doing relatively okay. Also, we got retail May sales, so we're gonna be talking about that. A lot of stuff to get into in the macro. And we will keep going from there. Let's get started. Daniel, Alex, Carl, P-Nick, Ty Gordon, David, Bayray, what's up? What's up? Oh, Rocket Lab got some news. We'll be discussing that as well. Brandon, Trucker Rob, June, Sasky Rose, not as late as Roaring Kitty. Yo, Roaring Kitty made people wait 28 minutes. We'll discuss the GameStop shareholder thing as well for those that didn't get the TLDR on it. It was not a good meeting. GameStop's down like 20%. Bhaskar Reddy, Michael Rosen, P. Nick, JP, Andres, Jeremy, Hakoon, Van, Gene, J. Duff, Gary, Jody, what's up? What's up? Thank you for being here. All right, let's get started and let's get into it. Let's do what we got to do. First off, I will say that although Palantir is hungry for more, what do you call it? Like dollars on its share price, right? And we can see how hungry it is given the price action. I am also hungry. And the reason I'm also hungry is, Rodney says, I've never seen someone so sad about hearing effectively the office is closed tomorrow. Dude loves his job. What did you? No, it's true, dude. Like we didn't get to stream for like a week, 2 weeks ago because I was gone. And so this is the thing about this. Like if there was any doubt that I fucking love doing this shit, waking up in the morning and just going at it, like I really love it, bro. It's like, it's hard to fake that type of love, but I love it, dude. It's the coolest thing in the world. And so I love building it, love getting better at it, and just going at it every day. Anyway, so outside of Palantir being hungry for more success, I am also hungry because I've officially started my fitness journey and I'm intermittent fasting. So I haven't eaten since like 6 p.m. yesterday. And for the past 2 months, you guys know me, I've been eating like a pig. I mean, it's just been god awful how badly I've been eating. Like I have no care in the world. And so when I flip the switch, you guys know my personality. When I flip the switch, I go all in. So yesterday I went to the gym, going to the gym right after the show again, got in the sauna yesterday, started running again, taking it slow, not going like making sure my body can adjust to it. But I haven't worked out really for 2 months. And I've been eating like a pig for 2 months. So now we're going back to intermittent fasting and we're going back to working out. So not only is Palantir hungry, I'm incredibly hungry, but I do like the feeling that you have when you intermittent fast, because it forces you. It's almost like spiritual in a way to like go throughout without food throughout the majority of the day, which I think our bodies aren't meant to be eating so much food throughout the day anyway, you know? So I think the science behind it makes sense, and we're going to have to keep seeing how we go further. Palantir going up makes it a lot easier though, because you got something green to look at, even if you don't have anything to eat. So Palantir 2518. Let's discuss. First of all, I want to see what you guys put in the chat. Why do you think Palantir is up? Why do you think Palantir is up? I have a lot of reasons for it, and I want to go through a lot of things. But why do you think right now Palantir is up? I want to get a lot of thoughts. I mean, I also want to get the thoughts of people saying, "Oh, this is just fake. This is just like a little." Kind of head fake in terms of the rally, and it'll come back down to 23. I'm curious for all perspectives in terms of what's happening in regards to Palantir and what people have to say. I want to play one quick clip. I played this on the market close, but I think it's really important to play again. This is what the Tampa General CEO said about Palantir at AIPCon. This 1 minute and 37 seconds, if you haven't seen it, I really think it brings into fruition what Palantir is doing for enterprises and why the market potentially might be noticing what's going on with Palantir.
A couple of reasons why we wanted to we were leaning in, and we've extended our relationship with you another 7 years. One, your people are outstanding. You're smart, you're well educated, you're thoughtful, you do a great job at listening, and you move really quickly. We're a tough customer. There's no question about it. So this is like not a paid advertisement by any stretch of the imagination. It's not. We can be a very difficult customer. One of the things that we struggle with in our industry is we move a little too slow. You act as an accelerant to the work that we're doing. So that's one big reason. Your technology platform is outstanding. And you've already heard lots about that in different industries, and that applies in our industry for sure. You're changing the DNA of our institution. I mean, that's the way folks have to think about it, at least in the healthcare space. You're literally changing the way we think, the way we perform, the way we ask questions and deliver care. So when you kind of put all of that together and you think about the quality of the people, the quality of the products, the culture and the organization that you've created under Alex's leadership and so many others, to us, it was a no-brainer. And we're culturally aligned, which is very important to us. And speed is incredibly important, because in our world, you have to be really good at what you do, but you also have to be really fast at doing what you do. And you allow that to happen.
Okay, so there's a lot of things to break down in that clip, and I want to take it through a variety of elements of analysis. Okay, number one, he says, under Alex's leadership, your company is changing the DNA of our company. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't heard a customer give that type of praise for a software company, for a SaaS, in a while. And I mean, I've watched the Nvidia Snowflake presentations where Jensen Huang says, you guys are great, you're doing amazing stuff with data. Like, that's not, you're changing the very essence of the DNA of enterprises that you work with. This was a real customer that just renewed for $50 million, 7 years working with Palantir. Notice how he mentions CARP at the top. And he says, I mean, again, a lot, say whatever you want about CARP. I think he is probably the greatest salesman for Palantir. He knows how to sell this company. He was probably pivotal in getting this $50 million deal, because that guy trusted Alex Karp and his leadership to get the job done. So that's the first thing. Number two, he's talking about your people are exceptional. For years, I remember in 2022, when that damn stock was at $6 and every single comment was, it's a consulting firm, it's an overhyped consulting firm. The argument for people saying it's a consulting firm, the logic wasn't horrible. The problem was the byproduct of that logic was idiotic. Meaning, yes, they are consulting with clients. They're not just selling you the SaaS, you download it, and then they move on with their lives like many other software companies are. They are performing an active consulting, but that active consulting is reconciled through the fact that they have 80% gross margins on a piece of software that they are selling you for prices that are traditionally accounted for through SaaS, right? Reoccurring revenue, but they are helping, AKA consulting, getting the content or getting the product mixed in with the organization's content to make it useful, which is the whole concept of forward deployed engineers. Now, is that a business model that is a little bit hard on the cost? Does that take more time? Yes, all those things are true. But what it does create within the beginning stages are customers like Tampa General, like BP, like Airbus, that are never going to leave, ever. Because I mean, imagine them working with anyone else, right? Like imagine that, like it just doesn't make any sense. Or you're just not going to leave once you find something good. And I think that's what I recognize as well, just in terms of my life and business. Like when you create something good, when you create something of real value, people actually care, and if they care, they're likely not going to switch. And so from that perspective, I think that what Tampa General is alluding to is that it is very difficult for them to find another company that can create the organizational approach that they have towards data that actually makes them more efficient, more effective, and then makes them feel they have a partner. And I think the market's reconciling that a little bit. Like AIPCon went largely ignored by the market. The stock really didn't pump that day on AIPCon. And I mean, look, a conference is not a reason to pump the stock. But when you look at all the customers that are presenting and what they're saying about AIP, and you compare that to the other SaaS players that have relatively shown zero evidence of AI making a difference in their business, not only through the numbers, but through the anecdotal, qualitative customer testimonials, then you get to the point where the market's just like, yeah, maybe paying $55 billion for Palantir is expensive. I will be the first to say that is a bit expensive. 100% for a company that's growing 21% year over year, 2.6 billion in revenue. Yes, that is expensive. Now, granted, I think those numbers are going to change to the upside towards the end of the year. But the premium, you could argue, is justified given all the stuff I just talked about in the context of how customers actually care about the product. And that's important. And that's very, very important. And I think that's why the markets are giving Palantir a little bit of momentum. Steven says, as long as other companies are not focusing on the ontology, we are the winner, but we got to be carefully when the rest of the world also starts using the word ontology, everyone will FOMO. Well, here's the thing about ontologies. Again, Palantir has spent 20 years building their version of the ontology. Other companies have things that are like pseudo ontologies. But if you just go through Palantir's patents, I mean, if you just Google Palantir patents, and there's like, you can go on the national website and just read some of these patents. They are monumental and extensive in terms of what Palantir has patented to be able to make the architecture from a data perspective of an ontology. Now, that gets into another debate of, can you actually enforce your patents, and like, does it matter in the software world? That's fine. But the point is, they have thousands of patents around this concept of an ontology, which just means they've spent 20 years thinking of how to build it. It's really hard to build it. And when it's really hard to build it, it's really hard to ultimately do what you have to do to compete with them. Speaking of really hard to build, Shyam Sankar was recently on a new podcast, and he talked about how hard it was for Palantir to get into the government business. The government business, I've started to feel, is more and more and more of a real moat for Palantir, because when you get $500 million in a random Wednesday, it's hard to compete. Here's him talking about what they had to do to actually compete in the government and why they are where they are today.
If a commercial item exists, you must buy it. That meets your requirements. You must buy it. It's that simple. You're not allowed to do developmental. Actually, there's a 3-part test. It's a pretty stringent 3-part test. So if that isn't true, if a commercial item exists, you must see if you can change your requirements to leverage the commercial item. And if that's not true, you must work with the commercial company to see if they can change their product to meet your requirements. Then, and only then, if all 3 of those things fail, are you allowed to pursue a developmental. Unfortunately, I think this is probably the most violated law on the books.
Yeah, and you didn't just, so Palantir didn't just sue to win, they sued to open it for competition, and then Raytheon at the time, I think, was competing against it, and you ultimately ended up winning the contract. It was $800 million or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was. It allowed us to compete, which then took another 2 years, and we ended up winning.
What was it like after you won the lawsuit and then won the contract, working with the customer, right? I think when you think about suing your customer and then having to have a business relationship with them for years afterwards, in the commercial context, that's almost unthinkable.
Look, it is kind of wild, right? I mean, they sued the government, and now the government had to give them money, and now they're working with the government. But that's the reason why they're getting so many government contracts today.
We didn't take that on lightly. That's not your first resort. It's your absolute last resort. As a company, you really want to work with your customer to kind of figure this out. And the customer would give us a hard time. What's your business model to sue your customer? I once asked a senior member of SpaceX, who also sued the government, do you guys still get grief about this? Your lawsuit every day. And I think to this day, there are people in the Army who will not forgive us for suing the institution, even if the outcome showed that, in fact, this is the better way for the Army to proceed. This is the legal and compliant way that promotes competition and new entrants and delivers lethality to those people who need it most. So I think it was emotionally very hard at the time. We were pariahs as a consequence of doing it while it was being figured out. People didn't really want to meet with us. But on the other side of it, I think ironically, the people who were closest to it were the first to kind of get over it, move past it, and start delivering on the program and like learn something from it.
So there you have Sean basically say we had to sue the army just for them to be able to give us the ability, or sue the government just to be able to get them to be able to procure software in a correct way. And once they did that, they had to end up meritocratically picking Palantir. I mean, just think about that from a pure like qualitative perspective. A company sues the government to open up a new precedent for them to be able to meritocratically procure software. What does that mean? That means if Raytheon's, grandpa on the board knows the other guy from there, like that's how they get the contract, that can't happen anymore. And that still probably does happen, but that can't happen to the extent it was happening in the context of software. It has to be the best software wins. So, when Karp talks about the discriminatory religions that exist in these Ivy League institutions, and he talks about why meritocracy is important and what it means for the foundation of democracy, they live and embody that. And they went through that by suing, now at this point, their largest customer, and opening up the ability for any software company to compete. If there's a software company that's better than Palantir, they will win more contracts than Palantir because they have the ability to try, which is why it's so important. At the end of the day, that opened up a massive government business, which is incredibly important, growing at 16% year over year. That reaccelerated last quarter. Now, I was talking about patents. I just went to patents.justia.com. This is like a library of different patents. Look at this. June 11th, Palantir filed a patent in July 26, 2021 for techniques for visualizing dependencies in a data analytic system. Let's read a little bit from this. In an embodiment, a visualization system may receive datasets and dataset dependency information for the datasets. The visualization system may receive a first type of analysis objects from a first analysis object system and data dependency information from an analysis object dependency service. I don't know what the hell that means, but it's something really important, probably connected to the ontology. They got it assigned 5 days ago, June 11th. Another one, they applied for it October 2021. They just got it assigned. This is a user-friendly, secure, and audible cryptography administration system. They got another one. They have filed for December 20th. They got assigned June 11th, 2024. I mean, when you look at some of these patents that they're getting and how hard it would be for other companies to try to build these same types of analytic systems, it just goes to show you why Palantir are getting these deals and why the market might be taking it a bit more seriously in the context of what they're trying to do. Adam says no one knows what it means. There's a video on my YouTube channel back in 2022 early. I think this was February, where I first figured out that Palantir was getting all these patents, because in 2022 they were getting a lot of them. And I tried to analyze 4 of them in a video. Dude, it's the funniest thing, because I'm like trying to make sense of it. And for a second, it sounds like I know exactly what I'm talking about because I'm speaking so confident. But in reality, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, the ontological data system right there means that there is a certain understanding of the secular notional way that the data ingests into the pipeline. I don't know what the fuck I was saying, but it sounded good. So yeah, they've been getting, patents for a very long time. Those patents obviously have helped them continue to do what they've needed to do. Okay, so where's the stock right now? So for those that are just joining, Palantir right here, 25.13. We just talked about why the market might be keeping it up right now. A couple of other quick reasons. Again, we did get a price target of $29 from Argus Research yesterday. They talked about our profitability. That was a really good thing. And they said that's expanding dramatically. I think markets also believe that Q2 is going to be better than Q1. I think they're expecting $649 in revenue. We're probably going to get closer to like $660 if I had to guess, which would be a decent beat. And then if that adjusted operating margin continues to go higher, the bottom line is going to have more net income, which will be good for EPS. Oracle and Broadcom, and we'll talk more about Broadcom, but goodness gracious, those companies just showed how much demand they're getting from AI, which also proves the bear case for Palantir. If they can't capitalize on the demand on AI and continue to grow aggressively, obviously it has to be above 21%. The market's going to say what's going on, because Oracle just got 30 new deals equivocating to $12.5 billion. Oracle right now at 140. One of the big deals with ChatGPT for AI-enabled cloud distributing, cloud hyperscaling, like distributing cloud infrastructure from an AI perspective as a hyperscaler to 30 different companies to the tune of $12.5 billion. That $12.5 billion is not in 1 year, but that's going to be over the next 5-7 years. So for them to be a cloud infrastructure AI play for 30 different companies means that those 30 companies, obviously Palantir is not going to sell them compute, but they're going to need software applications on top of that cloud. And that's where the Palantirs, the Snowflakes, the Datadogs should come in. So the demand is being set by a company like Oracle. The demand from a hardware side is being set from a company like Broadcom, showing how many chips are on the table, literally. And so if that's the case, Palantir should be able to capitalize on those deals. Now, maybe it's not Q2, maybe it's Q3, Q4, but eventually those deals have to be capitalized by Palantir in order for us to get the momentum that some of these other AI companies are seeing. And I think that will happen. even if Palantir is not a hyperscaler, right? I mean, the fact that Google and Amazon, I mean, like Dan Ives raised his price target on Microsoft to 550 yesterday, 4 trillion market cap, because he thinks there are more deals in the enterprise that are converting from an AI perspective. Now, those deals are, I would say, like 20% Copilot, 80% AI cloud computing deals on Azure's AI cloud, which means it opens up the possibility, same thing that Oracle just got, for the Palantirs of the world to capture the software applications on those AI clouds. Because at the end of the day, and I was reading an article yesterday, like cloud compute is going to become a commodity. These engineers at these companies are figuring out how to make that cost as cheap as possible. And just like storage today is a commodity, like cloud compute is also going to be a commodity over time. So really what's going to matter are things like an ontology, connecting all that data in a meaningful way and then using AI on top of it to streamline business efficiencies. And I think that's where Palantir's boat comes in to be very exciting. Mario says, Amit, love you, bro. I love you guys as well. Thank you for being here. It means the world to me. Thank you for being here this morning. Atil says, hello from Japan. What's up? If anyone's in Taiwan, I need you to like reach out to me and let me know when TSMC is gonna stop producing as much as they're producing right now. We were talking about this last night because we need to see when this thing stops for TSM. TSM is up another 1% in the pre-market. It's kind of feeling like it's a little unsustainable, but maybe it's not. Jensen Huang was in Taipei the other day and said that he thinks demand is going to be packed for the next 5 years. So, I mean, if you're in Taiwan, this is one of the most important companies in the world, $919 billion market cap. You can make a hell of an argument for why it deserves to be in the Max 7 if it gets to $1 trillion. And it seems like it's not going anywhere. So TSMC and again, that's also bullish for Palantir. That means demand is not stopping, and the software application of the demand eventually needs to be realized as well. Palantir also was bought by Kathy Wood yesterday. Not a lot of shares. She bought 9,707, which is cool. She also bought Amazon yesterday, which is weird. I think she's just parking cash in Amazon, 2,000 shares. She bought Iridium Communications, which is like, to my understanding, a legacy company. I don't know why the hell she's buying that. That's very confusing. And she bought Rocket Lab. Now, there was some news on Rocket Lab yesterday that we'll talk about as well. I am now a shareholder of Rocket Lab for 25 shares. They signed their largest Electron deal. It's a 10 Electron launch deal. Let's not forget the $500 million government deal they secured at the beginning of the year. They're up 5% after hours. So they signed another deal to be able to launch Electrons. I don't even know what Electron is, quite frankly, even though I'm a shareholder. And I guess that's bullish. I mean, and from a stock perspective, it's the same price I bought it at. Just like, so I'm not that excited. Like I bought it at 456. It's at 465. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's because it dropped fucking to 430. But yeah, that's good for Rocket Lab. So there you go. Rocket Lab has some momentum. Wow, I bought more than 1/10 of Aunt Kathy's daily purchase flex. You bought 900 shares yesterday, Douglas? All right, not bad. I know a lot of people did buy shares yesterday. They sold the $40 covered call on Palantir. I was trying to explain what a covered call is to my dad yesterday, and I was like trying to explain it to him, and I think he understood it. But for those that don't understand the concept of a covered call, when you have 100 shares, you can sell a call against those shares for a higher strike price in the future, and the market is willing to give you a premium, whoever's buying that call, for you to sell that call. But remember, when the buyer is buying a call to control 100 shares, they need to control someone else's 100 shares. So you have to sell that call for there to be 100 shares for them to control. So if you sold a $40 covered call for Palantir into January 2026, which means if you have even a $25 average, you would make $15 a share if those shares get called away. Worst case, you can kind of roll out of that contract, so it's not the end of the world if it does get to that level. I think the market was paying like $500 a premium, $450, which is a lot of money, decent amount of money. So if you sold covered calls yesterday for Palantir, it's not the worst thing. Now, if Palantir goes up even more today, those covered calls are going to get even juicier in terms of the premiums they're offering. But we will see how Palantir acts throughout the rest of the day. 25.10 right now on Palantir. So that's pretty much concluding our segment on Palantir. Again, we will have someone from traditional media, Stephen Goofoil, come on at 9:45. He'll be discussing more in depth his price target at $31 for Palantir. But the reason I think it's up right now is because the market's starting to recognize the value of something like AIPCon. Those presentations are starting to hit home. Also, I mean, the market's ripping. I mean, we'll get into macro in a second, but the market's ripping. Palantir's ripping with it. So that's another reason I could see Palantir coming back down if the market comes down as well. But you could also make the argument that maybe 24, 25 is the new norm. I think it's going to take a couple of weeks for that to stabilize at that level before we officially declare that. But good news for Palantir. And we got a $25 stock after about 2 months since we've had a $25 stock. Okay, so let's discuss what expiration date on the $40 strike, January 2026. But you can do January 2025 for like $35 and I think still get like 200, $300. Like there's a decent amount of money to still make if you sell calls into January 2025. You know, $40 by January 2026, that would put Palantir at a closer to $90 billion market cap. I think that's obviously very possible. It really depends on what happens in 2025. So this transitions us into macro. 2024 is wrapping up to be an incredible year. I mean, we still have 6 months left, and so we're going to see how it plays out. I am very curious what happens in 2025 because I think it is all contingent upon, can this party keep going like it's 1995 all the way to 1999 and we're in 2024 to 2028, or do we take a breather in 2025 because some of the macro catches up with us? Now, you may be saying, what do you mean by macro catching up with us? Well, that transitions us into retail sales for the month of May. Let me know in the chat if you're living in the United States or even if you're just across the world, did you buy a lot of stuff in the month of May? Did you buy a lot of stuff in the month of May? Retail sales came in plus 0.1% month over month. Expectations had 0.3% month over month. So it's below expectations in terms of retail sales. Now, this is the paradox, conundrum. This is the weird state we are in the market right now because technically this is good. Technically this is bad. So let's talk about it. What this means is that the consumer is starting to slow down on their purchases, at least in the United States, either because unemployment is rising. We saw that go from 3.9 to 4%, or because goods are too expensive, which means two things. Either the cost of goods will have to come down, which is good for lowering inflation. And we saw this last month. Target reduced the prices on 5,000 items. Why? Because they realized people aren't buying it. And the beauty of capitalism is that if people aren't buying, you have to adjust your prices to match demand. And so like, it's kind of how the free market works. And so that's a good thing for inflation. Number two, if there's less jobs with unemployment going up, there's less consumption. Less consumption means less pressure on inflation. This is what the Fed wants to see. So I think this is good news for inflation coming down. Why does that matter to us as investors? Because if inflation comes down, rate cuts are more likely. If rate cuts happen, I think this market melts up aggressively. I mean, look at how the market's acting without a rate cut. When the rate cut happens, and that doesn't mean everything's bullish for the economy, but it means there's a good Goldilocks period of like 4 to 5 months where the market will melt up and it's going to be a lot of time to make a lot of money for people that are invested. This is good news. The bad news about this is, wait a second, if people aren't spending as much as they were spending, well, hold on. If people aren't spending as much as they were spending, then is there something happening in the economy? And why does this matter? Because that means, are people going to start advertising on Facebook if people aren't spending as much? Are people going to keep paying Google for ads if people aren't spending? Is Facebook going to keep paying Nvidia for more GPUs if they don't have enough ads to be able to train with their models to make AI advertising? But like, all of it is interconnected. And so if the consumer starts slowing down, other companies also feel the brunt of it, and that affects the entire economy. Now, I think we are still in the Goldilocks zone. And I think that Goldilocks zone is that the consumer is slowing down, unemployment is rising, but it's happening at such a gradual pace that we have the ability for the Fed to cut rates without breaking the economy. And obviously the Fed needs to cut rates pretty aggressively, in my opinion, at least this year. I would assume at least 2 cuts in order to make sure that the economy continues to hold up the way it is. But they're kind of being subsidized by the fact that it's happening so gradual. Make no mistake about it. If retail sales declined month over month by like, let's say a crazy number, like 2%, I think the Fed would cut rates tomorrow. The Fed would have an emergency meeting just like they had during COVID. And when they cut rates, I think they would cut, because at some level, if sales decline that dramatically, if unemployment were to go to 7% from 4%, there's just no way the economy is breaking. And that means every single company is going to suffer, earnings are going to suffer, and then investors are going to suffer because Facebook's not going to be worth $500 if they're missing their numbers. It's just the ruthless nature of the markets. And so, I mean, we got to see how this plays out. But from a macro perspective, a lot of different things are being played out right now, and I think we have to see how this ultimately happens, which impacts 2025, and it obviously impacts Palantir's performance in 2025 as well. We got Matt in the chat that says, I've been unemployed since October 2023, still buying the same amount of stuff, and my net worth has increased during this time due to market performance. Now, a lot of people also, to Matt's comment, have put their money into the market. Americans' net worth is up, if I'm not wrong, about $30 trillion since the start of 2020. I think it's at a record 175, and it was at 145 at the beginning of 2020. I might be a little off on the numbers, but the point is, like, a lot of money has been made because stocks have done very well. And so one of the things is everyone feels that they have more purchasing power and they have more money, even with inflation rising. The question becomes, if we get a market correction, what happens in that in that scenario. But it's just hard to see a market correction also happening given the markets want exposure to equities. If we look at the 10-year right now, the 10-year is declining. 10-year was at 4.75. Now it's at 4.248. I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised to see the 10-year get back to 4.5 if we get some bad economic data. But right now, the 10-year is in a perfect position going down, right? If we see that 10-year get to 3.875, S&P probably gets closer to 6,000. Also, another strategist on Wall Street yesterday raised their price target to 6,000. I'm forgetting the name of them, but we saw Evercore raise it. We saw Goldman Sachs raise it. We saw JP Morgan raise it. And then I'm forgetting the name of the other one yesterday, but I was reading at night. They raised it as well. And so more and more and more of the Wall Street firms are starting to realize that it's ridiculous that they still think the S&P is going to like 3,800, 3,900, given that people want exposure to equities. And that's what we got right now. B-Self says, my SoFi bags say, sir, speak for yourself regarding increased net worth from the market. Oh, boy. Yeah, SoFi has definitely not done the best. CK says, people don't feel they have more purchasing power. I think the reports are clear on that sentiment. Yeah, you're right. People don't feel like they have more purchasing power. If you are invested in the markets, you definitely feel if your net worth has gone higher, which, let's be honest, is not a majority of Americans, right? Not a majority of people on the planet. I mean, this is what I posted this on Twitter yesterday, but like Palantir at $25 is amazing for the people that have actually put their money into Palantir. A lot of people have not put their money, forget into an individual equity, into the stock market in general, outside their 401k, which most people don't even know what the 401k is, quite frankly. They just know it's money that leaves their paycheck. So if you were strong enough to put your money in 2022 and 2023, you probably are up, and you may feel, and if you cashed out on some of those profits, you probably feel you have a little bit more money in the bank than other people. But the vast majority of people do not feel like they have stronger purchasing power as well. Which is a tough situation for the majority of Americans. And that's why, even though the stock market's booming, a lot of people are still not happy with Joe Biden, just given the fact that they feel the economy is not working for them. Now, is that necessarily fair? You could debate that, forever. But if you are in the stock market, you at least feel that the economy has done stronger than for the average person. Here's JP Morgan and their argument for why a soft landing still makes sense and why they are bullish on the broader markets.
Some macro analysis now of what's happening globally, primarily fixed income. Join us up.
I think the market's focus has shifted, including the Fed's focus, has shifted from just inflation. I mean, you talk about, can we declare victory? No, because the data is notoriously volatile. The Fed, I think, has a little bit of PTSD from what happened in the fourth quarter last year and then the first quarter this year. The fact that inflation came in higher, but we've had now 2 months in a row of sequential declining in inflation. Importantly, inflation expectations are well anchored. Wages are actually heading lower. And I would say much of the increase in inflation or the high inflation prints is all coming from shelter. Now, shelter.
Yep. And we know shelter is coming down.
Is important, but some of the high frequency measures are coming down. So I think we can be a little bit more comfortable around inflation. Now you look at the growth side, and that's where there has been a change. And I think the market's waking up to it. This idea that there is declining growth. Now, are we declining to a little below trend, or are we declining much more? I think that only time will tell. But there is clear slowing. And I think that's why the Fed is saying, well, we need a little bit more confidence to cut. But we're either cutting, 200 basis points, 250 basis points if we stay in a soft landing, or we're cutting a lot more. So I think that distribution of outcomes, just, the last time I was here 3 months ago, we were talking about do they hike? Do they stay on hold? Do they cut? I think now we're talking about at some point this year, they're likely to cut. The question is, can they cut fast enough? If inflation remains sticky, do they not cut? Monetary policy works with a lag. Do they not cut fast enough that they can actually prevent growth from continuing to slow down? Recessions are always nonlinear. So it is a concern, I think, for the market, which is why that retail sales number is going to be so important.
Yeah, we'll be watching that. You mentioned that. Now, you think that there is some risk that it's more than a soft landing then?
I do worry a little bit. I mean, typically all the slowdowns we've seen, you go back to recessions historically, things slow down, and then sometimes they tend to slow down much faster. It's a very non-linear, say, decline in growth or rise in the unemployment rate. We have had 0.6% of an increase in the unemployment rate. Now, if it continues, I think I'll get a lot more nervous. Right now, we think we're solidly in a soft landing. But soft landings, in my mind, are always about pricing in those risk scenarios. The risk a few months ago was that inflation would stay high. I think that's coming down. The risk now is, can the Fed be quick enough? Do they cut fast enough? We've had only one soft landing in history, 95. So as much as our base case remains soft landing,
Wow, the only soft landing was in 1995? I didn't know that. I mean, everyone's comparing this market to 1995. Maybe it ends up literally being like 1995.
still think risk assets make sense. I think you're supposed to do a lot of credit work. You have to make sure you're buying balance sheets that you like or business models that make sense, because dispersion in every sector is increasing. We're seeing it in the equity market. You're seeing it in fixed income.
So, I mean, look, the overall point she's making makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, it is a stock picker's market. And if you've picked Nvidia, CrowdStrike, Broadcom, all those companies, you've done very well. But her argument is that risk assets make sense. And, you know, as much as people are saying it feels like the top in 2021 in November when like everything was just ripping, the reason I've always felt for the past really couple months that it doesn't feel like that is because the only things that are ripping are things that deserve to rip. And Broadcom deserves to rip. Nvidia deserves to rip. Palantir at 25, you could argue 25 is a little expensive, whatever. It still deserves some type of premium. Palantir at 25 in January of 2021, I mean, it was not worth $55 billion in January of 2021, right? But the business has changed over the past 3 years. So I think from that perspective, yes, it does feel very frothy, but the frothiness is being rewarded on the backs of AI and on the backs of inflation coming down. And look, if we're in a market cycle where inflation's coming down and the market's reacting to good news on inflation, if everything's perceptual, well, if the perception is inflation comes down, Fed cuts rates, and that broadens out the breadth of the rally, then yeah, the market's going to pump. Now, maybe that only lasts for a couple months, but in those couple of months, that is where you get the melt up, and that leads us into 2025 after the election. So from that perspective, I do think risk assets make sense right now. And it seems like everyone on the street is starting to reconcile the fact that it does. And all the bears, I mean, even Liz Young, starting to become a bull, because it's just hard to remain bearish when Nvidia, Broadcom, Oracle are putting up the numbers that they're putting up right now. Jimbo Slices, I'm up 36%, just holding QQQ, VGT, and Nvidia and SMH. Good year for tech. Absolutely incredible year for tech. I mean, if you bought any of those ETFs that Jimbo Slice is putting up right there, you've done well. You've done very, very, very well. Pete Morin says all the people doing day in the life at tech company YouTubers snacking by the pool were laid off. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of them still exist, but yes, many of those. Zucks was ruthless. He said, we're not going to have that anymore. And, you know, you got rid of a lot of the fat, and now you have more people just being productive for the company itself. All right, we got 7 minutes until the market open. We will have Stephen Guilfoyle join at 9:45, talking about his $31 price target on the street. And so he'll be here in about 20 minutes and he'll discuss that. Bitcoin, let's talk about that. 64,935. First of all, shout out to Boston and the Celtics. Guys, I'm an NBA junkie. Or I'll say I was an NBA junkie. I loved basketball. I loved the NBA. I had hopes of being in the NBA. In fact, I joined my basketball team freshman year. I started point guard JV. I remember I was in practice one day. I had a really good practice. I was making all my shots. I was doing what I had to do. Coach came up to me. He said, Amit, how tall are your parents? And I was like 5'5" and 5'7", and he said, get the fuck out of my face. And that's a true story. It's a true story. And the reason he said that is because he saw my potential, but then he also came to grips with the reality of what my genetics would allow. And he legit said, get the fuck out of my face, because he realized like there was no future. So I love basketball. I've stopped caring about basketball as I've got into the stock market. But the Celtics won, and the Celtics are green. Unfortunately, they're not giving up any of that green to Bitcoin. Bitcoin had $145 million of outflows yesterday. $145 million of outflows yesterday on the ETFs. The overall price is down from 71,000 to 64,000. I mean, look, this is why Robinhood is struggling. Let's actually look at the miners. So what's interesting yesterday is the miners were like up almost 10 to 15%. And the idea was, okay, the miners going up historically signals a bottom to Bitcoin because the market's buying them before Bitcoin goes up because they want to front run the Bitcoin rally. Well, the miners are down in the pre-market. Now, they're not down as aggressive as I thought they would be, but CleanSpark's down 3%, Coinbase down 2%, Hut 8 Mining down 3%, Iran down 2%, Cypher down 3%. So it's not an aggressive decline. Even MicroStrategy down 2%, Robinhood down 1%. But Bitcoin itself right here at 64,929. I personally feel like this is stupid. I don't think retail is selling their Bitcoin. I feel like there is something going on with Coinbase and the institutions to maybe create lower prices or lower spot activity for the ETFs. Something's happening. I can't explain what's happening, but it just does not make any sense for this momentum to just randomly stop at 70,000. And I really don't think Robinhood and Coinbase retail investors like, oh, I'm going to sell all my Bitcoin at 70. Like, I don't think that's the case. I think they have a little bit more patience to see what's happening with Bitcoin, especially as the sentiment is as good as it is. And even if it wasn't that good, you think retail is going to be able to call a top? Like, no, like most of the time retail does not call the top. So if this is the top, I don't think retail would be the first to call it. So I feel like there is some type of institutional activity going on, holding it down. When rates get cut, there's more liquidity into the system. That's going to be good for Bitcoin. Historically, after the halving, 12 months after, you get a double on Bitcoin. Bernstein still thinks 200,000 is very possible. Most banks are still relatively bullish on Bitcoin. MicroStrategy is about to buy $700 million worth of Bitcoin coming up in the coming days, since he just approved that from his debt lenders. He was able to collateralize the company and the stock to be able to raise more equity to buy Bitcoin. So I think there's more momentum coming in, but it is confusing to see it down at these levels right now. And I guess we'll see, eventually how it plays out. Is MicroStrategy buying Bitcoin this week? I don't know if it's this week. I think they would want to, because I think they like Bitcoin at these levels. So I think they would like to start buying Bitcoin. The Biden administration has said they will start accepting, or they will potentially start expecting cryptocurrencies, accepting it for campaign donations, specifically Bitcoin. So you're going to see more politicians embrace it. Trump obviously has gone super pro crypto. There was a rumor yesterday that Trump is launching a coin on Solana. Now, the rumor has not been confirmed, but it was reported by a very reputable source, which is Pirate Wires. Pirate Wires, for those that don't know, is Mike Solana's company, his media company. Mike Solana is a partner at Founders Fund. So Founders Fund is Peter Thiel's VC fund. So they say, per conversations, Trump is launching an official token, DJT, on Solana. Barron, his 18-year-old kid, is spearheading the potential token. Now, again, this is not confirmed. If it was confirmed, I think it's a pretty good idea. Is Trump probably going to pull the rug? Probably. Probably. But I mean, in terms of raising money, dude, you buying a coin is way easier than buying a stock. And so if Trump did want to pump his own coin, I think there is a lot of potential to do that. But we don't know if that's officially happening yet. Now, one other thing here in the context of Bitcoin, let me just pull this up. BlackRock and Fidelity now own 427,000 Bitcoin, 31 billion just in those two ETFs. There's 7 other ETFs. These ETFs hold 262,000 more Bitcoin than MicroStrategy. So, I mean, look, BlackRock and Fidelity did what they had to do. They institutionalized Bitcoin, and they're going to continue to institutionalize Bitcoin. But unfortunately, the broader market has just not kept up with the price action, given what they've been able to do. And so we will see. We will see what ends up happening with Bitcoin, but right now it's definitely getting hit. Douglas says big players and large holders are manipulating pricing so they can accumulate now so they don't have to buy at market rates when things start running up. I think you're right. I think that's what's happening. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're all wrong on that, but it just does not make sense for it to kind of decline the way it's declining without any real catalyst, especially because the market, I mean, look, last time Bitcoin declined in November 2021, the market was at a top, right? NASDAQ was at 16,000. Like the entire market took a bit of a beating. For all intended purposes, the market looks like it has a lot of momentum left, and Bitcoin historically does well when the market does well. Bitcoin right here falling aggressively, 64, 8,433. This is worse than, is it the lowest it's been in a couple months? We got the market open in about a minute. Last time we were at these levels was May 16th, and we got to 56,000 on May 1st. Okay, so 56,000 was the real dip that we saw May 1st. And that was after we hit 73,000 in March. So, I mean, I guess that was the short-term bottom. 62.5, I heard, is the real level to watch out. If we break 62.5, we're probably going lower. We're going to have to see how that plays out over the coming months. Okay, so what do we have? We have the market open in 30 seconds. A lot to talk about when the market opens again. We'll have someone joining with the $31 price target at 9:45. A couple of other macro things I want to discuss. We have some more economic data coming out a little bit later in the day, so we'll see how the market reacts to that. We'll discuss SoFi. We will also discuss AMD and Nvidia, some interesting news updates on AMD and TSM as well. And so we'll discuss more as we get into the market open. Okay, here we go. Thank you all for being here. It means the absolute world. 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, June 18th. The stock market, cover your ears if you're new to this, is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. S&P 500, the stock market is now open, 547.32, up green on the day. Remember when the S&P dipped to 542 yesterday and we thought it was going to be a red day? Nope, did a nice little reverse, went up to 547. Let's see if we can get to that 550 level, because that's what I think we're really looking for on the S&P 500, and that's what's going to get the market very, very excited psychologically if we can break 550. So let's see if that goes from there. Bitcoin rising up a little bit, 64.8, 64.8. It hit 64.6. Let's see if we can get back above 64 or 65,000. SoFi up a little bit, 650. Nice to see SoFi getting some momentum. Again, it bottomed yesterday at 632. Let me know if you bought the SoFi dip yesterday, 649 right now, a 0.52% on the day. Bitcoin 64.8. American Airlines 1147. PayPal is below $60. PayPal now 59.81, down 0.51% on the day. Netflix, incredible day Netflix had yesterday, 675. I think it hit 682 at the top. Now it's up 40% year to date. Roku, we haven't looked at Roku in a long time. $53. So Roku's down. Square 62.37. Square is also down from like 75 a couple months ago. Google 178. Google did launch their newest Gemini app in India. So that app is now live in India. They're testing what Gemini looks like in India, and they're going to see how many people adopt it, how many people use it. I think it's smart for them, test it out in different markets, and then eventually bring it to the United States. Apple, wow, 217. Apple's not slowing down. Apple, I mean, look, Apple, whoever got it at 167. And again, at 167, it's not like it was ridiculously cheap. Apple right now, 33 PE, 0% growth. At 167, it was a 27 PE, 0% growth. But the market's giving it the premium on the potential that they're going to bring AI to the masses. And that's not a horrible argument to make for why Apple can win. Hut 8 mining is down 5%. Iren's down 3%. Cypher's down 3%. MicroStrategy down 3.4%. Bitfarms down 3%. Robinhood 21.93. That's down 1.4%. Again, Bitcoin falls. Robinhood is going to take a bit of a hit with it. ELF is at $205. Faraday Future somehow is still 50 cents. This stock was 6 cents 3 weeks ago. I'm confused why this thing is still 50 cents, but I guess people holding it are not selling it. But that's up. ELF Beauty's up 5% today. Anyone know any news with ELF? It's not even Christmas time. Why is ELF $206? Wow, 5% up on the day. ELF has had a hell of a run this year, dude. Hell of a. Was Ulta up? Ulta's also Ulta's down. So the divergence between ELF and Ulta has been obvious. I mean, ELF has just been investors actually like investing in ELF and their potential go-to-market strategy, which is differentiated from Ulta, which is more social media based. So there you go. Also, Ulta is like a Walmart of makeup. ELF is like the brand of makeup, I realized, and so that's another different thing between them. Rocket Labs up 8% on the day. Rocket Labs again got that deal. And that deal was important for Rocket Labs in terms of launching electrons. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. It's a 10 electron launch deal. I'll pull up the press release on that and we can read from that. But that is what's important, or at least what the market's giving some importance to in the context of Rocket Lab. Now up 10%. Wow, look at that. 10% on Rocket Lab. Not bad. It seems like the market likes that deal. Palantir 25.08. So we're holding 25, which is important. We're holding 25, which is good. We'll see if we can maintain 25. That's the most important thing, is maintaining it. We need to close above 25 for like the next couple of weeks to really, really continue 25 in the momentum. Remember, we were closing above 25 for a good 2 months. And then I think April was not the best month for the markets. And then we dipped right down to that $20 range. And then earnings kept us at $20. And so there you go. Now, my sister decided that she wanted to invest her Roth. She had $13,500 stuck in her Roth IRA TSM at 180 for the past 2 years. And finally, a month ago, she was like, all right, where do I put this money? We dumped all of it into Palantir at $21. So she's up a good 20% on her shares at $21 on Palantir. And that Roth is just going to be her long-term investment retirement account with Palantir in it. But at below 20 and 21, I think there was a good opportunity to get that dip. I think we could have that opportunity again if the market takes a little bit of a pullback. But if not, that was a great time to be buying, because the market was not going to be generous enough to give us below 20. That just wasn't going to happen. But $20.15, I remember it got to at the bottom. Like that was reasonable, I think, at that point to say that was about the dip. 25.14 on Palantir. So again, closing above 25, which is not bad. DNA. Oh boy, Ginkgo Bioworks. Where is this thing? Wow, 41 cents. Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. Any opinions on TSM? I think TSM is a phenomenal company. I don't know if buying it makes sense right here because I'm not sure what the financials, but I mean, the reason TSM is up more than 100% this year is because they are the crucial part of everything. And it's so crazy saying that, like, how did we not know that? I'm talking about me who didn't buy it, right? Even put a little bit of money into TSM in the beginning of the year. It's up 78%. It was $100. Market cap was about 400 billion less than it is today. I mean, nothing functions without TSM. Sometimes investing is that simple. It's like, dude, like TSM is the thing that makes AI happen. So I don't know if it's cheap right now, but $940 billion market cap, absolutely incredible, up 2% on the day. Oracle's up a little bit. Nvidia 132, Palantir 2513, Rocket Lab up 8%. S&P trying to go to 548. Look at that, incredible. Snowflake is down. SMCI back above 900. That's up 1%. Dell 146. Now, Dell, the CEO of Dell, was asked why he sold stock yesterday. I'll play that clip for you guys. He actually had a reasonable argument for why he sold stock. It was actually one of the best arguments I've seen, quite frankly, for why you're a CEO selling stock. But he did address why ultimately he sold $700 million worth of shares. Real quick, back on DNA. Is DNA a buyout candidate? Probably. At this point, market cap is less than $1 billion. This has been a bad story. And unfortunately, and again, I love Cathie Wood. I have all the respect in the world for her, but she has like almost 300 million shares of this company with an average of close to $4 or $5, maybe even a little bit higher than that. So it's tough, dude. It is tough for her and she's gone down with the ship, and I don't know if they recover. I really don't. At this point, I really don't. I would hate to see them fail because they started as a startup. I mean, they are the pseudo American dream, right? They started as a startup in a really hard biotechnical space. Like most of those startups don't succeed. They figured it out. They got customers. They were growing revenue. They went public. Problem is they SPAC'd in 2021. And a lot of those companies have not, honestly, to give SoFi some credit, one of the only companies that has actually performed since their SPAC in 2021. Like they really did perform. The stock price is not reflecting it. I get it, but like they have performed. The rest of them haven't. And so we got to give SoFi some credit there. But DNA, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen to that? All right, let's listen to Dell CEO, why he's been selling some stock. And let's see what he has to say here.
I'm asking because some of the analysts and investors I spoke to ahead of this were wondering why you are selling stock and have noticed that you have done some of your biggest share sales that we've seen from you recently. How do you answer that?
Well, you know, I started the company 40 years ago, and we had $6 million in revenues the first year. We'll have maybe a little over 95 billion this year. I've been an enthusiastic long-term shareholder and certainly remain so. But I have sold stock from time to time. What's also interesting about our company in that regard is our share count's been shrinking, Sarah. And I've been contributing shares to our foundation and selling some stock. But actually, because the share count's shrinking and I own about half the shares, my ownership percentage is going up.
Yes. So you're maybe rebalancing that. Michael Dell, we have a lot more to talk about. And if
I thought it was a reasonable answer. He's like, look, shares are decreasing, so shareholders can't say we're diluting them. I own 50% of the company. And then implicitly he's saying, look, our stock is fucking up 100%. You don't think I'm going to take some profits? I mean, like, look, you can't blame him, but it's not like he's dumping on shareholders given he owns so much of the company and given that the share count has been decreasing. So I actually thought it was a reasonable answer. Now, the uhs and ums in between his delivery of that answer made him seem kind of guilty, but he shouldn't be guilty, right? Like, I mean, it's actually a reasonable answer. Dude, if that was me, Sarah Eisman was like, Amit, why'd you sell 700 million of stock? I was like, Sarah Eisman, because I'm going to buy $700 million of fucking Palantir. Okay. Like that, no, I wouldn't have said that, but I'd have been like, look, I've been in the company for 40 years. My name is Michael Dell. The name is called Dell. You don't think I deserve some profit, Sarah Eisman? Do you believe in capitalism? Do you believe in democracy? Do you think I don't deserve the fruits of my labor? I was like, what do you think, Sarah? I'll just flip the question. She would be so awkward. She'd be like, I just want to know why you're selling stocks, sir. I don't care about all this. That would be so funny. But regardless, I think he gave a good answer, and I think it's reasonable. And Dell, obviously shareholders don't give a shit because Dell right here, 146, up 3% on the day. He still owns 50%. Yeah, he still owns 50%. Thomas says, in that case, Karp is more than guilty. He's the king. So when Karp says it's like philosophical, dude. When you hear the ums from Karp, you like every makes you think about what the next word is going to be. And you're more in an anticipated anxious state for the cool stuff he's going to say after the ums. When every other CEO says it's like, dude, this guy needs a speech coach. Like, what the fuck is going on? Palantir 25.22. And so the ums continue to make Palantir more juicy. 25.22 up almost 1% on the day. We hit 25.30 at one point. Let's see if we can keep this sucker going, bro. Let's see if we can keep this sucker going. 25.22. Do you think we can get to 26? I was obviously kidding. I was fanboying very hard, but like, don't tell me you don't think when he says, you think there's going to be some He's gonna spit some hot fire after that dude. Whenever he says like there's always a little something there. Palantir 25.24. Could we hit 26 today? It'll be a little tough. I think you need the broader market to keep up with it, but I mean, it is possible. 25.24. Market's obviously excited to buy it at 25. Yesterday, there were 50,000 shares at 24.99 as a nice big wall. Sorry, 57,000 shares. And it was really hard to get over that. But once they got over that, then we kept moving forward. Right now, I'm looking at the order book volume. Oh, yeah, dude, there's no walls. There's 0 walls, bro. This is not a Michael Jackson album. We are off the wall, dude. Look at this. There's no walls. There's no walls. There's no big like hurdles. We don't need Derek to buy like 1 billion shares to like resolve this stuff. There's at 26, there's 10,000 shares waiting to be sold. It's actually kind of low volume, quite frankly. Where's the volume right now? Volume is 6 million. Yeah, that's actually relatively low. 6 million in volume. Let's see, man. Maybe there's a shot. Maybe there's a shot. Maybe sell a $26 covered call on Palantir. I did not, Adam. Adam just knows how to wheel correctly, so he's been good at collecting premiums. I mean, look, let's see if we get to 26. But if anything, we can roll out of those covered calls. And I mean, look, historically with Palantir, it runs up and then it takes a little bit of a breather. So the idea that it runs to 30, I would be a little skeptical on. But the idea that it runs to 26 and then comes back to 24.5, I think that's very possible. The question is just if that happens. The thing is, there's no catalyst to create this for Palantir outside of maybe the market ingesting a pecan. Definitely, it's more macro driven, more the market's ripping. So if the market takes a little bit of a breather, Palantir will probably take a breather. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Amit, you won't be able to see orders in the dark pool. That's correct. Robinhood's order book volume is not perfect. I definitely can't see dark pool volume. So there's probably a ton of little manipulations happening here. But from what I can see, if there's enough buyers, this thing is going to rip through 25 if there's enough volume coming in, because at every level is only a couple hundred shares waiting or a couple thousand shares to be eaten up. Amit has no clue who Pink Floyd is. Okay, I do know who Pink Floyd is. They made a song called Time, right? Right? Pink Floyd, Time? They made a song called Time, right? Yeah, Time. Time is a beautiful song. I heard it 2 years ago. It's about like, I'm looking at the lyrics right now. It's about like basically being closer to death and realizing you haven't done what you wanted to do. And that's the only song I know by Pink Floyd, but that is a good song. Such and says order flow hides invisible or hidden order, which are generally done by institutions during trading hours if they intend to hide it. Yeah, that's true. That's something that retail generally doesn't be able to see. Chewy and Hims. Let's go to Chewy. So Hims, yesterday, Hims, Dick's, and BJ's were all up. So make with that what you will. But Hims right here up another 2%, 24.73. It topped at 25 yesterday. Hims, again, there's nothing I can say other than congrats, dude. If you got into Hims, congrats. I mean, like, you've had a hell of a year. And so you deserve to bask in the glory of it. I think the GLP market, and not I think, Goldman Sachs thinks it's a $200 billion market. Hims said, you know what? We already have this telemedicine subscription base. We're going to offer them Ozempic. We're going to offer them an easy way out to lose weight. And so we're going to capitalize on the market. And there you go. So that's why Hims is getting its momentum. And then Chewy up 5%. I don't know why Chewy's up 5%, but Chewy's up 5%. They did have good earnings last quarter, but Chewy is up 5% right now. Micron's up. Micron. Yeah. So Micron was raised to 170 by Bank of America. Micron had their first profitable quarter 2 quarters ago. They had $793 million or something of profit. So that's what really got them excited. The street's getting more excited about Micron as well. 121 in May 31st. And if we look year to date, they were at 79 and then they jumped all the way back up to 127. Now they're 150. This is another trend with Broadcom and Nvidia continuing to gain momentum. S&P 547, Nvidia 131, Palantir 2508, Netflix 679. Where's Robinhood? Robinhood is at 2205. Okay, so Robinhood back above 22. KRE is up a little bit. The banks, regional banks are up. Enphase 119. Enphase is down. CleanSpark is down 3%, even though CleanSpark had a 9% day yesterday. And Novix as well. Shout out to you if you got a Novix. I mean, this thing, $12. It was at like $6 a few weeks ago. So Novix has done incredibly well. And then Hims again, 24.67 on the day. June has a 53 share cost basis on Micron. Congrats. That's incredible and not bad at all. Alpha's making me a wealthy man. I love it. Alpha's just had an incredible day. QCOM, we haven't talked about Qualcomm. Let's see that one. Wow, up another 3%. Year to date on this one was at 133 to start the year. Now it's at 228. So it's basically doubled. So many stocks this year have doubled, bro, especially in the semiconductor space. Like it's been a hell of a year for some of these companies. And like, again, it doesn't feel fake. It feels like all of it's justified. IWM getting a little bit of love at $200, but still not having too much momentum. Buffett keeps buying Oxy. Yes, thank you for mentioning this. So Oxy. So let's talk about this. Buffett bought a crap ton of Oxy over the past week. You know how he raised $178 billion in cash? He's deployed more than 176 million of that 178 billion into Occidental Petroleum. So as you can see right here, he bought a million shares at 59.7, another million shares at 59.5, and then another 330,000 shares at 59.7 as well. Now, this is a stock he's always loved. He's always loved the energy sector. He can't get enough of it. It seems like the money he sold some 100 million shares of Apple, and he's starting to deploy in some other areas. One of the arguments for Oxy, just like at a pure bird's eye overview, is that the world needs more energy because of AI, and Occidental, even if it's not renewable energy, it's going to be in demand. Exxon is going to be in demand. Like, there's no way we get these data centers continuing to scale unless we have energy. So the energy play, and there's going to be winners and losers in the energy play, but Occidental, obviously one of the biggest companies in the energy play, he's betting that Occidental is going to be able to do what they have to do. And that's going to be really important for Occidental. Sostin says, I love this chat. We all just help each other. Yep, we all just help each other in chat. That's the goal of the chat, and that's the goal of this community. Speaking of this community, folks, we have a special guest who is with us here today. And this special guest has been on Wall Street for the past 3 decades. He understands the markets very well. He's been trading in the markets very well. He also is a former veteran. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the Sarge with us. What's up, Sarge?
Hey, man. Glad to meet you. Glad to see you. Hello, everyone. And you're still a veteran. You're not a former veteran. So
that's 100%. You are still a veteran. Thank you for your service to this country. I want to start the conversation there. Before we get into Palantir, you are a veteran. You were also trading while you were in the Army. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, how you were intertwined with the stock market along with the military?
Well, it really begins earlier than that. I've had my own account since I was 13 years old. Because my dad was the guy that traded stocks, so he taught me everything about like fundamental analysis and stuff like that. Where I really had a leg up on other 13-year-olds, other kids in high school. And I joined the military out of high school. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17, so I didn't go straight to college. So really, even as an enlisted man in the Marine Corps, I was trading. But back then, you had to make a phone call in order to place a trade, and they charged you like $30 per 100. So it was a lot different than it is now, but I really got my feet wet as a child, and then I served in the Marine Corps. I got a job on Wall Street. I went to night school at St. Francis College, which is in Brooklyn, about 10 minutes away from Wall Street. I eventually got my BA in economics and continued on to have now a very lengthy Wall Street career.
I mean, that's incredible. A lot of people aren't able to do both at the same time, and they're not able to obviously have what you had, which is your father helping you actually understand.
And I was in the reserves while I was going to night school and working on Wall Street, so that was it was a lot.
All right, so let's get into Palantir. Obviously, Palantir, government contractor. They work a lot with the Army, the Marines, the military. Why are you bullish on Palantir, and why do you have this $31 price target on them?
I have been with Palantir probably almost as long as you have. I used to run this product for the street called Stocks Under 10 Portfolio, Stocks Under $10 Portfolio. And this was one of my main stocks in that portfolio since it was trading with a 4 and 5 handle. When the street dropped that subscription product, then I was allowed to own it for myself. So then, I bought the stock from my own account. I think I could have had a $4 to $5 handle. Now I have like a $16 handle, but I've been adding on pretty much every dip along the way whenever I get a chance. My goal is to have a large enough position where I can actually put some off to my children and my eventual grandchildren, because I think my opinion is that this is not a trade. This is an investment, and this is a long-term investment. Probably, I'm almost 60 years old, probably longer than I'm going to be around. Palantir is going to be around and hopefully taking care of my family.
Okay, so you've obviously had experience with them. You've understood the company for a long time. You've seen their journey kind of over the past 2 decades as they've become a bigger company. How are you thinking about this $31 price target? I mean, do you kind of think from a valuation perspective in this mid $20 range, it's undervalued? And obviously 3 years ago in this $20 range, one could argue it was just aggressively overvalued, but things have obviously changed in the past 3 years.
Yeah, recently, I put a couple of charts out for my readers the other day. As of the end of May, Palantir was in a descending triangle, which is kind of a bullish pattern. It got rejected at a couple of the moving averages a couple of times. It was looking a little bearish. I was thinking maybe I'd buy some on the dip, but I'm also happy that it changed its complexion, and that descending triangle happened to turn into a cup with handle pattern with a 24 pivot. So that had me. I had previously had a $27 price target, which was taken out. Then the stock came back in. I put a $29 price target on it. This new cup with handle with the new pivot is how I increased on Friday my target price from $29 to $31. I still will buy the stock down to the 200-day simple moving average. If for some reason breaks that moving average, which I don't see right now, we're not even close to that. The stock's going in the other direction at the moment. But if it were to get down there and break that spot, I would probably take a little bit of a profit and then try to add again when it got lower than that.
Got it. No, that makes sense. And from a technical analysis perspective, I saw a lot of other people thinking that cup and handle is starting to form, which gets more exciting for Palantir. How do you think about Alex Karp and leadership in this company?
I think he's so interesting. He's so obviously intellectual. He's so almost eccentric. He's someone I think that is probably charismatic enough to engage both the really high tech guys, which I'm not part of, the investing community, which I am part of, the younger investor community, which you're a leader in. So this guy's kind of uniting everyone who can see where they're going, because really their fundamentals are fantastic, except for the valuation, which is forward looking. So we really can't poo-poo the valuation too much. But I mean, everything else about this firm, he talks about not having competition, right? He's confident, like someone we've never seen. The balance sheet is probably the best balance sheet you will find in the U.S. marketplace, bar none. I mean, there's not an ounce of debt. The current ratio is fantastic. The current ratio ex deferred revenues is even better. I mean, if you understand fundamental analysis and you look at this firm's cash flows at 12-month back trailing cash flows and balance sheet, you say, oh my goodness, this is a fortress. This company is a fortress. They could lose money and they could burn cash probably for a year, and not other than in the stock price. If you work there, you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the $4 billion in cash, zero debt. It's one of the best fundamentals for a balance sheet on the market at their size, right? At $50 billion. On valuation, you said you felt a little iffy about the valuation, which I think everyone, even the biggest bulls, also feel. Paying $55 billion for a stock growing at 21% year over year, it's a little tough. Do you think they need to accelerate the growth closer to 25-30% to really grow into that valuation for it to make sense?
It's crossed my mind. I mean, it might. I mean, then again, maybe their margins are going to ultimately be so fantastic. I don't know. I'm hoping are going to be so fantastic that they can stay at this 22-23% rate that they're now growing at. 20%. Most of my career, 20% was fantastic growth, guys. I mean, a lot of folks here are probably younger. They probably think 40%, 45% is fantastic, and it is. But 20%, if you can keep that going, 15%, if you can keep that going, now is a growth stock in my day. So yeah. I'll take this 22-23% growth as long as it's profitable and as long as this guy Karp still has a plan. And if you've listened to this guy for a few minutes, you know he has a plan.
Well, to that point, 22-23% growth with profitability, which they pivoted last year when interest rates started going up, and no debt and $4 billion in the bank. Like, yes, it's not 30-45%, but a lot of those companies that are 35-45% can't make a profit.
No, that's true. That's true. And cash flows, their cash flows might not be positive. I mean, if you don't have operating cash flow and free cash flow, then you really have nothing. That's more important than GAAP profitability, if you ask me. But then again, Karp's not worried about that. He says he has GAAP profitability going out at least 4 quarters in the future. So he's looking at the S&P 500 for inclusion. We're not there yet. It probably doesn't deserve to be there yet, but it probably does deserve to be in the discussion at this point.
AI. I mean, I think all of us don't fully understand what's going on with the AI markets, but we know there are some names that are going to win. Do you think Palantir's a winner when it comes to AI?
On the software side, without a doubt. I saw a little ServiceNow yesterday. I'm actually decreasing my exposure to ServiceNow. I got out of Salesforce before it started getting hit, thank goodness.
Wait, well, why? Why? How did you have the insight to trim?
It didn't look good on the charts, and I've listened to Benioff here and there. Sometimes you can tell when he's being honest, and sometimes he just sounds like he's kind of spinning a tail a little bit. And I started to notice that change in him. So, and if you watch his interviews with Kramer of late, even Jim, who's been a Benioff cheerleader, didn't really sound like a Benioff cheerleader last time they spoke. So there has been a change.
Yeah. The $4 billion in or the $1 billion they've authorized for buybacks. Do you think at 24, 25 they should buy back the stock?
No,
I don't think they should, quite frankly.
No, I don't. I think they can wait till it moves back towards its moving averages to make that decision. There's no reason to do so. And even if it comes in here, where is it right now? It's heading back towards $25. I mean, if it sells off today, so what? I mean, it's you saw that move yesterday. That move was the move yesterday. It's going to wiggle a little bit. It almost always gives you those days where you're like, uh-oh. And then another day where you're like, uh-oh. And then you get that day where you feel good about buying it when it's trading in your wheelhouse. And then you have a few days like yesterday where you feel very confident again. So it's going to be just like all the other cheap stock, low price stocks, I should call them, that I'm building positions in for the futures of my family are SoFi, which isn't really working out so well, and Rocket Labs, which actually is working out quite well right now. So, but none of them are in the shape of Palantir.
I love it. Everybody, Sarge here is on Twitter. I got 2 more questions for you, Sarge, and then I'll get you out of here. Please make sure to follow him here on Twitter. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Real quick on your experience in the Marines. Do you think Palantir's moat in the government is that when the government accepts a piece of software or where they get integrated with it, it's very hard to get off of it, and that is a reason they're just going to keep winning more and more contracts?
I think that's part of the. I was an infantry guy, so I didn't really touch Palantir when I was in the military.
Right.
But that's definitely part of it. Part of it is that there's a trust there between the brass of the military and Palantir. There is a trust because Palantir hasn't screwed up yet. Like you see Boeing. Like, I know it's a completely different industry, but Boeing has repeatedly screwed up. And yeah, I will tell you this: I was on an airstrip in the 80s when we were being dropped down into Panama. And I stopped and talked to a staff sergeant in the Air Force on the airstrip. And he told me he hated Boeing equipment because it always came. He said the equipment they had to fix it when they got it and it was dirty. This is what somebody said about Boeing in 1985. And it always stuck in my head. I never bought Boeing in my whole career because of what that staff sergeant told me in 1987 or whatever it was.
Right. Okay, you mentioned SoFi and Rocket Lab, so I got to get your thoughts on that real quick. Rocket Lab, what's your bull case on those guys?
Well, it's a cheap way to get into the space game. The space game's still wide open. Elon is in public. Blue Origin is in public. I don't think you want to invest with Richard Branson. I just said Boeing isn't a place to be. You can be in Lockheed and Raytheon. I mean, they're involved in aerospace and Northrop Grumman, and I am in all of those actually. But I just think this is they're also down in New Zealand. They're here in the States. A lot. I think more and more corporate customers are relying on them. I'm not sure they can be profitable long term. I'm not at all. This is a speculative play, but it's cheap enough where you can take a shot on speculation.
I 100% agree. I mean, if space is growing, if SpaceX is worth $200 billion, Rocket Lab's at $2 billion. If SpaceX ends up becoming $1 trillion company over the next 20 years, I would think Rocket Labs is bigger than a $2 billion company. All right, final thing, SoFi. This one's had a tough year. It's been a lot of people in my chat own SoFi. I've owned SoFi before in the past. Why do you think the stock is struggling in this range?
Well, I think if you want to be in it's struggling for a lot of reasons, and a lot of them have to do with the financial space, the smaller financial space. I think people put them in the same category with the regional banks, which they don't really belong in. It has come the wrong way. I'm down a little bit on this one. I'm not even on the plus side in this name, but I'm close enough to where it's almost break even.
Right.
I think they have a very strong CEO. I trust Anthony Noto a lot. I remember him. I didn't go to West Point. I remember him from West Point when he was when he played linebacker for the Army football team. And if you are as nerd about academy football teams as I am, and you remember the aggression that this guy showed on the football field, then you know it's still there. You know he's still got that aggression. I followed him through his days with the NFL, through Goldman Sachs, which is one of my mortal enemies, and when he was with Twitter. I mean, he's had a good career. He's in charge now, and every time that stock gets cheap, he puts his own money up, and for me, that's huge.
So it's a bet on Noto at the end of the day.
I'm betting on Noto more than SoFi. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Sarge, thank you for joining. Any shout outs you want to give as we end it out? Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, his Twitter here is in the chat. And yeah, we got to have you on. People are loving you in the comments. Right now.
That'd be great. I love this show. This is fantastic.
This is awesome. Yeah, no, you told me yesterday that I'm doing investing in sort of the more youth social media retail way, and we're re-exciting it. And you've obviously been on all the legacy media networks, so it's really nice to get someone who's seen that perspective, been on the actual trading floor, to join my perspective.
Even when I've been on internet television, it's TD's network, it's Yahoo Finance, it's something that resembles CNBC and Fox Business. It's not something like this, which is, it looks so grassroots. I mean, with your crew here commenting as we go along. I mean, this is really fantastic. I think I'll watch it when I'm not on it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Sarge. Appreciate it. We'll definitely get you on next time. Appreciate your take.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. So that was Sarge, everybody. Again, check out his Twitter. Awesome take. $31 price target on Palantir. And again, because of his background, I think he has a unique perspective on understanding why the government thinks that Palantir has a little bit more of a broader moat. And he's also he's decent at technical analysis, man. He's been able to see a lot of technical trends before. But that's another reason I wanted him on, because I've been following him for a while. And if you just follow him on Twitter, some of the charts he posts and how things end up playing out, he actually understands this really well. So Palantir right here at 2502, struggling to maintain above 25, but it is maintaining above 25. So there are buyers. I think we dipped to 2487. Yeah, 2483 just a couple of minutes ago while we were talking, and then bounced right back up to 2502. So there we go. At Palantir at 25. What else do we got? Okay, so we got Palantir at 25, SoFi 653, Rocket Lab. Let's read the Rocket Lab press release. Let's try to make sense of this. So for those that don't know, I bought 25 shares of Rocket Lab. Well, you guys made me buy 25 shares of Rocket Lab. I don't know why the hell I bought it. But let's try to read a little bit from what they're doing. So today they announced they signed the largest Electron launch agreement. Electron, I believe, is one of their rockets. A 10-launch deal with Japanese Earth observation company Synspective. The agreement was announced in Tokyo. Rocket Lab has been launching from Synspective since 2020 when the company deployed the first satellite in their synthetic aperture radar constellation. By launching the sole payload in Electron, Synspective has control over the launch schedule as well as the precise deployment parameters. Sir Peter Beck says, we are honored that the Synspective team has once again entrusted Rocket Lab with the deployment of their constellation. We're proud to be a launch partner for their 10 missions and our largest 10 launch agreements to date. Japan's space industry is one of the fastest growing globally, and we're excited to be enabling this growth through the unique collaboration of a U.S. rocket and New Zealand launch site, delivering an unprecedented level of tailored action to orbit for Japanese satellites. All right, so it's a deal with Japan. Makes sense. That's cool. Again, for me, Rocket Lab, as Sarge said, it's really speculative. You're holding it with the idea that you hope things get better in the future over time, but it's one of those things where a small press release is not necessarily going to explode the company, right? They're going to need a lot of time to be able to do what they have to do, but it's good news. It's definitely not bad news. And again, under $5, I don't know if that's the cheapest in the world given the valuation, but I also don't think it's the craziest bet to make if you believe SpaceX gets closer to $600 billion. SpaceX right now is valued at about $189 billion on the private markets. Probably going to IPO at $400 billion. I mean, I wouldn't imagine maybe 350, but it's going to be above this private valuation. So from a comparable perspective, Rocket Lab, 10 billion, 20 billion is not crazy if they keep executing over the next 5 years. Snowflake's down while Palantir's green. So again, we're seeing that divergence. Snowflake getting hit while Palantir goes up. Their data security, there was a couple of other articles today about data breaches in Snowflake, and it's not that good, or it's not going that well. So Snowflake's still trying to struggle with the PR and the actual technical part of the data breaches. But that might be another reason why it's down right now. Amit, you need to have Matt or Vince on to talk about Rocket Lab sometimes. Yeah, we'll definitely get them on the show. I mean, it's a little tough for Vince because he's in Sweden and Matt's at work usually during the market open, but I'll probably do a podcast. I actually did a podcast with Matt like a year ago on Rocket Lab. If you guys look it up, Peter Beck is in the thumbnail, but probably have to do an updated podcast with just both of them discussing Rocket Lab. No snow during summer. Dude, it's kind of crazy, bro. It's kind of the collapse of Snowflake is just kind of crazy. And again, I will keep saying this. I do think it's going to bounce because I think it's ridiculously oversold. I don't think it deserves to be at 130, but I do think the market's trying to figure out like, is there anything real here? And that's why it's struggling right now. I mean, like someone else tell me another reason why it's struggling. Because like stocks fall for a reason. Sometimes those reasons, yes, they could be irrational, but I do think the market is trying to figure out what is the moat in investing in Snowflake. And I don't know if they have any answers to that yet. But granted, I do think that 130 is probably a little too low. Where's Celsius? Celsius is up. Celsius, all right, so up 5%. Nice little bounce on Celsius. That's not too bad. That's getting up there. I do think it's oversold as another massive red bar comes in. I mean, look, I think it's oversold because I think they're gonna do close to $3 billion in revenue. So like the idea that it falls 45% year to date and doesn't, fall only 35% year to date and has a nice like rebound of 10% when rates get cut. I think that's that. Now, if that doesn't happen, that means there is a serious qualitative problem with the company. That means the market just does not believe in Snowflake. And granted, the CEO leaving was, I never felt the best about that. I don't think anyone felt good about that. So him leaving as well was a little bit tough. Okay, we got Elizabeth Warren on CNBC. Let's see what she has to say. Elizabeth Warren, a proponent of taxing unrealized gains, whether you agree or don't agree with that, that is her perspective. She's on CNBC. I think it's always good to have, obviously, I don't always agree with the Warrens or the Bernies of the world, but we should always get counter perspectives and see what they have to say. So let's see what their perspectives are and what we need to do when it comes to interest rates and the broader economy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us this morning, and she has more on her stance on this. Senator, welcome. What do you think the problem is here?
Look, the problem is that just last year, we saw the second, third, and fourth largest bank failures in the history of the United States. There is an effort underway that has been underway for years now to increase the capital standards, not across the board for all the banks, but for that tiny sliver at the top, probably somewhere in the range of 5 or 6 banks. Now, those banks don't want to have to increase their capital standards because it means they have to hold a little money back so that they're a little safer, a little more secure, and so that American taxpayers won't be called on to bail them out again. Back when the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, was talking to us last year about the bank failures, he admitted that we needed stronger capital reserve requirements. And he has made the point repeatedly when he's come in front of Congress, when I've questioned him, that we have a vice chair for supervision, that's Michael Barr, and that Jerome Powell as chair would support the vice chair as the vice chair developed rules for stronger capital standards. The vice chair is doing that, and it appears that the chair, Jerome Powell, is trying to undercut him. In other words, doing the bidding of that handful of giant banks who would like to be able to gamble all of their money, and if things go wrong, have the taxpayers pick up the slack.
All right, Senator Warren, let's run through a few of those points. That's a lot of stuff to dig through. First of all, you mentioned the big bank failures that we've had recently. That is true. We have had the biggest bank failures, but it has not been the taxpayers that have bailed them out. It has all been borne by the FDIC. It raised special assessments on all those biggest banks that you talked about. So they were the ones who have been doing the bailing out when it comes to this. Second of all, these big banks have pushed back, and their side of things has been that if we are not allowed to use that capital, it is capital that will not be going out to do things like make loans for houses, make loans for small businesses, make sure that the American public has access to that money, and that we will become less competitive relative to other big countries.
So, let me unpack what you've just said. The idea that we say it's fine for the FDIC to have to pick up, I don't know, $12, $15 billion in losses because of those bank failures, we shouldn't worry about it. And notice, by the way, that JP Morgan Chase, that bought one of those big banks, managed to book a more than $2 billion gain from doing its own government-supported rescue of one of those failing banks. Look, the whole idea is to make the banking system more stable. And I don't know about you, but I still remember in 2008 when the American taxpayer had to sign up to be on the line for $700 billion in bailout money for those giant financial institutions.
But it wasn't the giant financial institutions that have gone bankrupt. You're right.
And that the Fed opened its window and let money go out over
but I don't think we should I don't think we should
over.
compare to what's
So I
happening
think
right
it's
now to
really
what happened during the
important.
Great Recession, during the Great.
You know, that's what everybody says. Let's not worry about the bad times during the good times. The banks are highly profitable right now. They have booked enormous profits. And if they had to put aside just a little bit, then they would be safer. That's the idea behind it. And do keep in mind that these giant banks are no longer the banks that are doing lots of home mortgage lending. That's done by our community banks. It's done by our regional banks. It's done outside the banking system now.
The community banks and regional banks are the ones that got in trouble. That's where the big collapses came from.
Take a look at who it is that's doing the home mortgage lending.
Let's take a look at who was doing the financial collapses, though, too.
The banks are making the argument that somehow they won't be able to do a kind of lending that they're only doing a tiny portion of right now. The way I see this is we have a vice chair for supervision. Jerome Powell has testified to this multiple times. He is the expert on bank capital requirements. He is trying to devise those capital requirements. He is getting hit by lobbying by a handful of giant banks. And now it appears, and I've written a letter to ask about this, that Jerome Powell is also joining the lobbying. Jerome Powell said in open testimony in front of the United States Senate Banking Committee that he would support the vice chair for supervision. He did that back when the vice chair was Randy Quarles and very much in the corner of the big banks. Now that it's someone who's taking a little tougher look at those banks, suddenly it appears that the chair of the Federal Reserve is changing his tune. Look, either he really believes in supporting the vice chair or he doesn't, but it is not the job of Chairman Powell to get out and lobby on behalf of a handful of banks so that they can be even more profitable by pushing more risk into the rest of the system.
Senator, my biggest problem, I think, with what you're saying is questioning Jay Powell's credibility or his commitment on what he's doing with these things to suggest that he's been bought and paid for by the banks.
All I can do is compare what he said in
He is saying that Jay Powell's paid for the banks. I mean, that's what she's implying here.
testimony in front of the committee I'm on in answers to questions to me in public, and how he has now turned around and appears to be changing
with a
his
different.
tune. I have written a letter that says I want to clarify what his position is, and I would like for him to clarify his position on this.
But
he's not there to lobby
that
on
he has
behalf
been,
of a handful of giant banks.
But are you suggesting that his opinion has been drawn up because of these banks?
And the security
I'm sorry, I'll let you talk first, and then you can listen to me. I'll let you talk first, and then you can listen to me. We shouldn't talk over each other. Go ahead.
We shouldn't. Go ahead. You're the one who interrupted.
Yo, that's dude. Not to Becky, Warren. You can tax unrealized gains. You will not disrespect Becky, bro. That's unacceptable. That's where I cross the line. No, that's not right.
Okay, Senator, let me just ask, are you suggesting that Jay Powell is a person who has been totally swayed by the banks on this? Or what? I mean, it sounds like you are. Am I wrong to make that assumption?
I'm suggesting that Jay Powell testified in front of the banking committee multiple times that he would be guided by the vice chair of supervision on decisions around capital requirements. He did that for years when Randy Quarles was the vice chair for supervision. I didn't like the direction Randy Quarles went because I thought he was too much in the pocket of the banks, but so be it. That's what Jay Powell said was his approach. He thought it was the right thing to do. Plus, he said that's the structure of the Fed. We have exactly one place in the Fed where there's one person who is specifically charged by statute with developing the expertise and developing the rules on things like capital standards. And that's the vice chair for supervision. And then Jay Powell turns around and seems to be undercutting exactly what the vice chair for supervision is doing. And I want to understand why. And I want to understand if it is related to the fact that Jay Powell has had multiple meetings with Jamie Dimon and with other big bankers. It's not the job of Jay Powell to carry water for the biggest banks in this country. It is the job of the chairman of the Fed to watch out for the security and safety of the whole system. And that is specifically on the question of capital reserve requirements, the job of the vice chair. So I have written a letter to Jay Powell asking him, would he please clarify what on earth he's doing here?
All right. So the real reason for why Elizabeth is so upset at Jay Powell is because he's not cutting rates. She also wrote in that letter last week for him to cut rates. Now, Jay Powell, and my opinion, you can agree or disagree with my opinion, but my opinion has been pretty objective and standard from the past basically 6 months. I think I've been talking about on the show. I think Jay Powell, if he nails this off, will be the greatest Fed chair of all time. The reason I say that is because, yes, he got inflation wrong in 2021. Objectively, he got it wrong. There's no denying that there. Why did he get inflation wrong? Well, we had a global pandemic in 2020. The entire world was shut down. Trump and Biden printed, what was it, $8 trillion in 18 months? By the way, you know who voted for those policies? Elizabeth Warren. So the sort of paradoxical hypocrisy here, in my opinion, is that Warren is mad at Jay Powell for what's going on with the banks, thinking that he's a shill for the banks, thinking that he's the reason rates aren't going to come down. And I'll get to why I think, Jay Powell is right to be as basically hesitant to raise rates as he is, or to lower rates as he is right now. But the reason he had to aggressively raise rates, the highest they've ever been in 40 years and the fastest they've ever gone in 40 years, is because Elizabeth Warren, along with a variety of other politicians, it's not just Warren, voted to print trillions. I mean, look, if I could go back in time and there was a initiative to say, hey, give back the $1,200 or the $600 you got from Trump or Biden in 2021, but to not have inflation be an issue, I would unequivocally give back those $1,800 I got, because that $1,800 was not worth the over 10% inflation we have to deal with for the past 2 years. It just wasn't worth it. And it makes no sense. So in my opinion, I would, just from an objective standpoint, if they voted to print all that money and that money led to the inflation we're seeing right now, you can't get mad at Jay Powell, who inherited an economy that had 8 trillion printed in 18 months, and then had to deal with all of the political aspects of some politicians wanting lockdowns, other politicians not wanting lockdowns. Unemployment goes to 15% in March of 2020. Jay Powell's like, well, I don't know what the hell to do. Obviously, we have to cut rates dramatically because we got unemployment at the highest level since 2008. And then you're afraid to raise rates because if you raise rates, what if the economy collapses, given we just went through a freaking pandemic? So obviously he messed up in certain scenarios, definitely messed up in regards to raising rates quick as late as he did because of inflation, quote unquote, being transitory. But I don't blame him either, because look, it's a tough job. And if anyone else in the chat thought they could have nailed the bottom perfectly on inflation and they could have raised rates immediately, it's very tough. Not to mention Biden printed another $2.5 trillion in 2021, right when he got into office in January. That was when you needed to raise rates, technically, because in 2020, all that stimulus had gone into the system. NFTs were trading for $5 million for a rock, right? It was pretty obvious inflation was happening at that point in hindsight, but Biden printed another $2 trillion. That was not Jay Powell's decision. That was the Congress's decision. So I give Jay Powell a lot of credit for, in the past 18 months, the stock market's at all-time highs. Inflation has come down dramatically from 10%. It's being a little stingy right now, but it will come down. And he hasn't had to cut rates for the past 11 months, and he's been able to make this happen. Now, has AI given him a bit of a tailwind, given him a little bit of a push? Yeah, AI has helped, and you need some luck when you're trying to pull this off. But nonetheless, he has pulled this off, I think, to an extent. So I think when Warren's critiquing Powell, and look, there's a lot of good critiques on Powell. I'm not saying we shouldn't critique Powell. Bitcoin right here above 65,000. But at the end of the day, like how would you manage an economy that has 8 trillion printed in 18 months, and you've got one side of the economy saying we need to immediately shut down everybody and have even more unemployment because they're afraid that the pandemic's going to become worse, and then another side of the economy saying no, we can't shut down jobs, people are going to lose their businesses, blah blah. Like, you're just in the middle of all that. Yeah, you're going to make some mistakes, which he did, but I think relatively he's been handling it pretty well. It's just sad to see Warren blame him for everything. I think that's the hard part. because he's just one guy at the end of the day. Jay says, how about Trump's influence on Powell to keep rates lower for longer back then? Remember, he threatened to get rid of Powell at one point. Yeah, which is why I don't blame Powell. Trump and Biden have both been critical of Jay Powell and the Fed. And so I don't think people give the Fed enough sympathy. I think the Fed did mess up in 2021, but they're trying to figure it out, and they've done a hell of a job getting it back to normal. And now I think they're going to cut rates by the end of 2024, and things are going to be okay. Just now, the Fed president spoke. Fed's Barkin just spoke, and he says, we are clearly on the backside of inflation. That was the quote we just got right now. He spoke about 10 minutes ago. We are clearly on the backside of inflation. I mean, inflation at 9.9% in June of 2022 when Bitcoin was at 16,000, S&P was getting closer to 3,400. I don't think anyone thought in 2 years they would get that to be dramatically lower and the markets would be at all-time highs. I think that's something that matters. Also, I don't think Jay Powell's a shill for the banks. In that 60 Minutes interview in March on CBS, Jay Powell said, hey, we have 4,000 banks in the country. He quite literally said, if some of them die, some of them die. Like, it is what it is, right? And he's not wrong about that. That's actually not being a shill for the banks. That's free market capitalism. That's saying, look, if you're a bank and you can't survive and you die, Silicon Valley, Credit Suisse, etc., yeah, you die. It is what it is. Sorry, you're going to die. And yes, maybe JP Morgan's going to buy you out, but that doesn't mean that Jay Powell's shilling for JP Morgan, in my opinion. Or at least I don't think that means he's shilling for JP Morgan. Let's get Chris's thoughts on this. Let's see what he has to say. Let me give him a call and get his perspective on what's going on. Chris, what is your take on what Elizabeth Warren just said?
All right. So I think you are 100% correct in saying politicians fuck shit up. And then when the regulatory bodies are out there trying to fix shit, they're like, oh my God, why are you trying to fuck shit up more? And that's what Elizabeth Warren just did, going after Jay Powell, thinking, first of all, what she's saying isn't 100% wrong in that banking regulations were loosened, but they were loosened at a time, with the great financial crisis before that, so that more people could get into homes. Remember, they were like, oh, let's reduce lending standards so more people could borrow money, so that this way they could buy houses, and all of it was federally backed by securitizations done by the federal government. So the federal government always tries to come in there and saying, hey, I think we can do things better. And then they mess things up, and then the private sector takes advantage, right? And comes in and rescues everything, and then tries to make things efficient. And then politicians come on the back end and say, let's mess things up more again. I think Elizabeth Warren in this case is completely wrong. She doesn't understand that had JP Morgan not stepped up and took over all of those crazy low interest rate assets. I mean, dude, these are rent regulated buildings all throughout New York City. SVB had all these issues with loans and stuff. Literally, we could have had another great financial crisis had JP Morgan not stepped in. Now, JP Morgan, with Jamie Dimon, the guy is shrewd. He's not going to say, look, I'm going to take the risk on and screw my entire bank. He's going to be very methodical with it. So I think people really need to give more credit to someone like Jamie Dimon for actually stepping up and saving the situation instead of just letting the entire banking system collapse, in which case we would have had a Great Depression, and this is the kind of shit that keeps happening right now. The commercial real estate sector, it's literally on the cusp of having a meltdown. The only thing keeping it alive right now is the prospect of rates getting cut in the future.
Right.
Okay. Multifamily housing right now and rents are starting to come down so much. You're actually starting to see problems come around in that sector. I don't know if you've been tracking that lately, but multifamily housing, there are a lot of projects right now that are completely underwater with vacancies in the double digits, and they can't afford to make payments. So I don't know. These are the kinds of crazy things that.
What do you think Warren's agenda is here? Why is she blaming Jay Powell so aggressively?
Because she needs to come off like she's like what is that thing called? Like a government watchdog. Like she's there for the little guy. Whenever she does these interviews, you can tell by her inflections that she comes on not because she legitimately even understands or cares about this stuff, but mostly because she's trying to make a political stunt out of this. This is what politicians do. They make everything into a political stunt, So it is what it is. That's how much they do, man. That's what they do. I mean, I honestly, you are absolutely right in saying all these politicians voted for all these policies to keep shoveling money out the door. And then when inflation comes in, they're like, hey, the Fed, what are they doing about it? You know? So
yeah, that would have been my question, because it's like, she's really upset Jay Powell's not lowering rates for a variety of reasons. I get it. But if she voted for the stimulus, and we can objectively say 2 years later, the stimulus obviously caused massive inflation, it's kind of like it's hard for her to have a right to be angry. But as you said, she needs to appear angry in order for her constituencies to believe she's on their side.
Absolutely. And I mean, both sides do this. It's not, look, I know Republicans that are way more pro-choice, but they'll always come out in public saying, I'm anti-abortion.
Right.
And it's the same thing with Democrats, where they're staunchly against immigration. But whenever you ask them, they're always like, oh, no, we have to keep open border policies. This is the thing. Each person is towing the party line, because there's no such thing as dissent anymore. It's very rare to find a politician that will go against their own
agenda.
What is that? Agenda? Yeah, their own policy agendas like that. Because these people don't even. I really don't think most of these politicians give a shit about the country anymore. All they care about is their next election cycle, and basically how the DNC or how the Republican Party will end up primarying them if they don't toe the party line. And that's really the fucking sad part.
Yeah, no, I agree. So do you think Jay Powell stays as the Fed chair in the next administration, whether it's Trump or Biden?
No, I don't think so. He's done.
Really?
Yeah, he's done. There's no way he stays. And not to mention, he probably doesn't even want to stay, man. Like, you really want to be in this position where you're constantly being like negged all the time? If anything, his only agenda now is making sure that he's remembered as Volcker and not Burns. You know, being that tough guy on inflation that didn't let the economy melt down. Jerome Powell handled everything correctly. That is his legacy. At this age, your legacy is more important than whatever stupid little office that you may hold, in which case you feel you're the most important person in a room. You know, that's about it.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for your thoughts, guys. I'm putting Chris's Twitter in the chat if you're not already following him. And we'll have you again on the Market Open.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, Chris. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Chris as well. I think at the end of the day, if Warren's going to be causing inflation, she can't really complain that much about it, or at least have a little sympathy for the guy that's trying to resolve it. Palantir right here, 25.17, breaking above 25. We got to 25.21. Market's keeping up. Market's doing okay. Bitcoin struggling, but it's getting back to 65,000. S&P is green. Not really a red day. Stocks that are red are Snowflake, Robinhood, DNA, Ulta Beauty, Fortinet, QQQ, GameStop. Oh, we'll talk about the GameStop. I didn't talk about that. Oh, Lennar. Lennar had earnings yesterday. Their earnings were not that horrible. This is one of the largest home builders in the country. They built 19% more homes year over year than they did. Now, the U.S. is going through a 1.5 million home shortage. So that's kind of like the housing crisis that we're seeing right now. But Lennar put up some decent numbers. Stocks down 2.55%. I think they have their call in like another hour. And so we'll see what they say on the call and how investors think of that as well. Broadcom, is that up? Is Broadcom up? Oh, it's down. Okay, it's down about 1%. Broadcom's up like 20% last week, so it makes sense that's taking a little bit of a break. S&P 547, Palantir 25.21. Dell having a great, wow, Dell up 7%. Look at that. 138 if you bought the dip. Wait, what was the dip? The dip was 127 on Dell. Holy crap, dude. Not a bad dip if you got that 127. Now it's at 152. Even when the CEO sells $700 million of stock. Market's like, you know what? And again, the story about Dell, for those that are still confused about it, their demand is going through the roofs. If you look at their numbers, their operating margins are like zero. So the big question is, can they get, operating margins to 10, 15% over the next year? And if they can, they should be able to print a lot more bottom line net income, which should dramatically increase EPS. And that is the tailwind that I think the market's betting on when it comes to Dell. If that happens, Dell's going to be a good situation. CrowdStrike 390, that continues to go higher. SMCI, nice 5% day for SMCI. Someone asked in the chat, would they do a stock split? I actually think it wouldn't be a bad idea. If they, same thing with with what's the other one I was looking at? I forgot the name of the other one. It was not Broadcom. There's another one that's really pricey that if they just split wouldn't be bad. But if they just split, I don't think it would be the worst idea. SMCI going to like what, $93 a share, 10 for 1. Not bad. I think a lot of people will get more excited about SMCI. So that one I don't think would be the worst thing. Oh, MicroStrategy. That's the one I was thinking about. I was thinking about this last night. If MicroStrategy did a split from $14.91 to $149, I think a lot of people would be more excited about MicroStrategy. I think the options chain would include as well. Not Palo Alto. Palo Alto's only $300. They don't need to do a split. I mean, if they did a split to $30, that wouldn't be crazy. But MicroStrategy doing a split, I think the market would get excited. Okay, let's talk about GameStop. So for those that missed the earnings call, or not the earnings call, the shareholder meeting, it was 20 minutes. It was an embarrassment. I went live on YouTube. I had a lot of new GameStop apes join the live stream because the algorithm recommended it to them. And I was a bit critical of the call after the call happened. And that chat was a very fun chat to be a part of it. If you were there, I got called a lot of names for being critical, but I expected it. I had to be critical. I could not be critical because it was just a ridiculous call. They said, we have nothing more to say about the $3 billion we raised last week. We are focusing on building our business. Zero Q&A, 20 minutes, down 11% after. I mean, dude, it was an embarrassment of a call. It was just an embarrassment. It was absolutely disgusting. They did not care about shareholders. They did not even try to act as if they cared about shareholders. So from my perspective, I thought it was a horrible call. Now, do I think there is a broader plan in place? Yes. I don't know what the hell that plan is, but there's got to be something in place after a call like that. You got to have some trick up your sleeve, I would imagine. I think there's a reason Roaring Kitty bought 9 million shares, right? But I don't know what that plan is. Now, one other thing on Roaring Kitty, and again, that really was the summary of the call. They said, we raised money. Thank you for being a shareholder. We're focused on the business. That's it. They didn't answer any other questions. Roaring Kitty apparently bought 9,001,000 shares because that's how many shares Ryan Cohen bought back in 2020. I found that out last night. So this 9,001,000 that Kitty bought, apparently Cohen bought the exact same amount back in 2020. So there's a reason he bought 9,001,000. And so I didn't know that until last night. Again, his average is $23, $23.41. But there's a reason it's 9,001,000. And maybe that's another kind of signal he's trying to give to the market that, hey, trust in Ryan Cohen. He bought the exact same amount of shares that I bought when he took over in 2020. He knows what he's doing. And therefore, the market should be a little bit more sympathetic to Kitty. Or to GameStop. But again, I guess we'll see what ends up happening. Lamb Research did a 10 for 1 in October. This is another semis play as well. Wait, are you talking about Lamb or Lamb? Oh, Lamb. Are you talking about this one, June? Lamb, L-A-M-B? Or are you talking about Lamb Research? Because yeah, Lamb Research has not done their split yet, but this one is up 1.9% as well on the day. Clean Sparks back down 3 point. Where's Tesla? We haven't looked at Tesla. Tesla is red 2%, but it's still in the 180s, so that's good. Clean Spark is down. Oh, Clean Spark's up. Wow. Look at that. That's actually interesting, man. The miners, let's see if all the miners are doing that. Not all the miners, but Clean Spark's back green. Wow. On a day where Bitcoin goes bad, Clean Spark's up. That's dude. I mean, most people thought Clean Spark would be 17. Even MicroStrategy. I feel like the market knows what's about to happen with Bitcoin. Clean Spark and MicroStrategy should not be up when Bitcoin's down. Like historically, that's just they usually take a nice little beating, and then it is what it is, right? Because they're so pegged to Bitcoin. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Even Clean Spark recovering a little bit. Robinhood 22.13. Bitfarms is green. Kind of all these companies, they were down 4% of the day. Now they're down 1% or 2%. Bitcoin recovering a little bit right above that $65,000 level. Robinhood, or we should have looked at Robinhood. Palantir. Okay, Palantir 25.27. Let's see. Let me look at the book volume on Palantir. Let's see if we can, what we've got going on. Are there any walls? There's no walls that I can see. There's a small wall at 25.50 for 21,000 shares, but that's not crazy. Again, I don't see the dark pool, but $26, there's 16,000 shares. There's not that many, dude. I mean, if we get the volume, I think this thing can break 26. But they have to try to do that. HIMS is up 5%. HIMS is up 5%. Yeah, HIMS what, above 25 again? Wow, 25.50. That's a new all-time high for HIMS. Wow. New all-time high for HIMS. Look at that. 25.50. HIMS. What's HIMS volume? HIMS. Look at that. HIMS's volume is 3 million. That's half a Palantir, and it still is able to get them. That means there's just way more buyers than sellers on HIMS. Bitcoin price and volume have been declining. Next big volume pop to the upside will be violent. I agree. And I think the miners are potentially reflecting that right now. Lam Research announced they will do a 10 for 1 in October, like a month ago. Lam Research. What's the ticker for that? Are you talking about Lam Research? Because you're saying Lamb. I think you meant to be saying Lam Research, June, not Lamb Research. Can you eat lamb? Do people eat lamb? Or is that a thing? Do people only eat goats? Has anyone ever eaten a lamb? Let me type it. Do people eat lamb? Yes, some people eat lamb, but it's not as popular. On average, Americans eat 1.1 pounds of lamb per year compared to 60 pounds of beef. I've never had a lamb before. I've never eaten a lamb. People eat lamb? Oh, lamb chops? Oh, wow. That's it. Yeah, that's a brain fart. That's a brain fart. There's definitely something called lamb chops. Oh, shoot, dude. I was about to be like, Palantir 25.54, but I clicked on HIMS. However, Palantir's still 35. I was just about to be like, let's go. We got above 25.50, but I clicked on HIMS. Still 25.35. Nice little green candle right there. Look at that. Maybe we see 25.50 soon on Palantir. I forgot about lamb chops, dude. I forgot about lamb chops. Yeah, Lam Research. Yeah, Lam Research will do a 10 for 1 split. So they'll be like $100 in October. I don't think I've had lamb chops before. Adam says, "Are you effing serious, dude?" I forgot. I just thought of lamb, and I was like, "Oh, people people wear lamb, like the what do you call it, the stuff on the lamb? What is that thing called? It starts with an S. The shield or something. What do you call the thing you get off the lamb? It's something. It starts with an S. People wear that on their on their jackets and shit like that. The wool. Is it called wool? It's something like that. Lamb skin. Yes, but there's sheep. Wool or wool. Okay, wool. That's the word, right? Wool. Yeah, people wear that on their like jackets and shit. But I forgot people eat it. Palantir right here, 25.36, still trying to get up to 25.40. I cannot even believe this was a question. Dude, I forgot people eat lamb. Like, I forgot. Lamb is a sheep that's less than 1 year old. Ah, interesting. Interesting. This is me in real time. Sorry, say wool again. It's wool. It's what? Am I saying wool wrong? It's wool. There's no way I'm saying wool wrong. There's no way. Wool definition. There's no fucking way I'm saying wool wrong. Wool. Yeah, look, listen to the lady say it. It's wool. I said it the right way. Here you go.
Wool.
The fine, soft, curly, or wavy form from a sheep, goat, or similar animal. This is what I mean. This is what people get to like wear their fancy jackets. Their cashmere sweaters or whatever. This is what it is. How am I saying it wrong, dude? It's wool. I said it the right way. What are you talking about? Let's listen to her again. I said it the right way.
Wool.
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 Learn to pronounce.
Wool.
Oh, the O's are like an It's wool. I don't like speaking anymore, dude. Speaking is getting difficult. Palantir 25.46. I know how to talk about Palantir. Let's see if we can get that bad boy up to 25.50. 25.46. Again, there's not a lot of resistance. There's like 20,000 shares at 25.50, but it is possible to break through. It is possible. It is very possible. MB says English phonemic consistency is garbage. Not your fault. Thank you. Someone agrees with me. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Notice I didn't say that Elizabeth Warren is from Massachusetts because I was just like, you know what? I'm just not even going to say I'm not even going to say it at this point. You guys think I'm like trolling when I can't say Massachusetts. Like I really can't say this shit. It's hard. 25.49. Come on, Palantir. Let's get to 26. We've been stuck at 22 for so long. It's time to move on. It's time to absolutely move on. Let's get out of here. Let's get into the 26s. Let's move on. Let's move on. Like Nvidia, by the way, trying to break 134 right now. It's at 133.3. Let's see. Admit you're intellectually smart, but damn, your common sense ain't great. Dude, it's weird. It's like, it's so weird. Sometimes there's just like Clean Spark, by the way, up 2%. Sometimes there's like things about the world that I'm just stupid at when I talk. Palantir hit 25.53, but then it came right back to 25.45. Let's see, dude. Now it's like watching paint dry, but maybe that paint dries quickly today. We can get back up there. Tesla going sub 180. Where's Rocket Lab? Rocket Lab is 485. Wow, up 11%. How much am I up on Rocket Lab? I'm up $6, bro. You know, I could go for a cup of coffee. $6 is like, I mean, $6 is not too bad of a deal to take some profits. I'm just saying, a cup of coffee wouldn't be that bad. Palantir got hit 25.38. It's getting hit at 25.50. We did break 25.50, but then it's getting hit right at that level. Let's see. The market wants it. It's not like the market doesn't want it. The market's willing to pay right now. Just need the volume to come in. Broadcom's down a little bit. S&P's green. HIMS is still up. Palantir's up. CleanSpark 1955. That's up as well. What are you going to do tomorrow? The market's closed, dude. I don't like when the market's... I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. It's going to be a depressing morning, quite frankly. I'm going to have to just fucking... I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess I'll just go to the gym during this time instead of after the market open. I don't know. But I'm happy I'm back in the gym, guys. I'm so happy I'm back in the gym. It's been so long, dude. I got in the, like yesterday I was in the gym. I felt great, bro. I was running, lifting, got in the sauna. I love, dude. I do about 15 minutes in the sauna. I'm trying to work up to 20 minutes. I did 20 minutes a couple months ago, but it's been a while. So 15 minutes in the sauna. I think it's like 185 degrees Fahrenheit, not Celsius. We're supporting America here. And it's great. I have a hoodie on. It's hot. I have my headphones in, and I'm just like, and yesterday though, the Wi-Fi stopped working on my phone because in the sauna, like the internet's not the best. So I literally am just me and my silence in the sauna, sweating. And so it's great. It's a great experience. Thoughts on a BA potentially M&A of SPR testimony soon? SPR? What is SPR? Spirit Aerosys. I have no idea if Boeing would buy them. As you saw, Sarge is not the most bullish on Boeing. Boeing right here, 174. It's down about 15% year to date. I don't know. I guess I'll check out the testimony. I'll see what they have to say. But I think Boeing's not in the best situation to do any type of acquisitions and get on regulators' backs right now, given the shit they're dealing with. There was also a whistleblower that came out about Boeing the other day. Like, so there's a decent amount of stuff Boeing's trying to navigate right now. They're not in the best situation. Hoodie in the sauna. Yeah, bro. It exacerbates the pain in the sauna. And so I like it. It makes me sweat even more, which is important. All right. Palantir 25.39. Trying to get continued. SoFi's up 2%. Okay. SoFi 6.59. There you go. Again, I asked you guys on the market close yesterday, but Data Driven Investing, friend of the channel, he put out a good post on SoFi, and I'm still torn on agreeing with him fully on this. By the way, Jason Tatum did win the championship yesterday, and he's sponsored by SoFi. Now, I don't think that's that big of a deal, dude. I think a lot of people will be like, oh, the Celtics won the championship, and they're sponsored by SoFi. I don't know, dude. I don't know if that's like the most amazing thing in the world, or I don't know if that necessarily helps SoFi that dramatically. But that is something that is obviously not horrible for SoFi. Now, he put out this post saying that SoFi is only up 50% from its recent low in 2022. Palantir is up 300%. Duolingo 250%. CrowdStrike is 325%. SoFi is growing like a SaaS, but they're being traded on tangible book value. And his argument is that doesn't make any sense. I am still confused if he's right about this, because banks trade at tangible book value. And until the fintech part of SoFi's business starts aggressively growing like a SaaS, which even if it's growing less than Palantir, Duolingo, and CrowdStrike, it needs to grow even more because the majority of SoFi's business is lending. So it needs to really stand out for the market to give it that SaaS premium. I don't know if SoFi will ever start trading beyond just its tangible book value, given that it is a bank. And so I think that's the everlasting debate around SoFi and if things will change. But as of now, not fully sure. Let me look at, Dougie says the Robinhood premiums. Let me look, or Palantir premiums. Let's take a look at that. So Palantir right here at 25.31. So if you wanted to write a covered call on Palantir, let's take a look at that. Covered call on Palantir. Let's go to Jan 2026. If you want to sell a $40 covered call, you're getting $385 for every 100 shares. If you want to do Jan 2025, you want to do a $30 call or a $27 call, you're getting $380. $30 call, you're getting $280. If you do a $25 call, you're getting $460. So the premiums are printing today for covered calls. The question is, do you believe Palantir gets to those levels by then? Or do you think Palantir takes a little bit of a breather after this run? And it's hard to time it. It's hard to kind of time it. I think when you sell covered calls, you just have to be comfortable with your shares getting called away at those levels. I mean, obviously you can roll out of the position and stuff like that, but if you're comfortable selling Palantir at $40 and your average is 20 and you make $20 a share and you get the premium, then it's not the worst thing in the world. But if it gets to 40, that's the scary thing, dude. If it gets to 40, if Palantir gets to 40, unless we have a meme stock rally, it's not going back to 25. Just like Palantir going to 25, it's not coming back to 7. So once we're beyond the 25s and the 30s and the market has normalized paying a certain price for the stock. I mean, that's the cool thing about the stock market, right? The coolest thing about the market, like you can buy a stock cheap, it can go up, and the market unilaterally decides, you know what? We're going to pay above $20 for HIMS. And for the longest, HIMS was stuck at like $3, $4. So if you were gobbling those shares at $3, $4, $5 all the way in 2023, now the market is normalized. Hey, nope, $20 is like fair value. If it dips below $20, that's a steal at 16. You bought it at 3. You're just sitting there. I mean, I'm sure Nvidia shareholders are looking at what's happening this year to their stock, and they're literally sitting back and being like, wow, the market's just willing to pay more. So for Palantir, when it gets to 40, I think it'll be normalized at that 40 range. And a dip to 35 will be exciting. A dip to 32 would be exciting, but trying to get a dip back to 25 is going to be tough to see if that happens. Hey, Mick, can you explain buying call options versus selling calls? Yeah, so when you buy a call option, you are buying the right to control 100 shares. It is more risky because you need something to happen. You need the stock to go up in order for you to exercise the contract. Meaning if I buy a call option for Palantir at $30 and Palantir gets to $35, I can exercise that contract, which means I can purchase 100 shares at $30. If it's at 35, there's a delta of $5. I make $500 a share. Most people don't exercise the contracts. They just sell the contract. So it's a game of musical chairs almost. You're buying a contract for Palantir to get to $30. Let's say Palantir is 15. Palantir gets to 25. The value of that contract increases because it is closer to that strike price. And then you just sell the contract back to the market, to a market maker or someone else who's willing to buy that contract. Usually there's a lot of liquidity in a stock like Palantir, SoFi, et cetera. And so there's always a buyer for that contract. When you sell a contract, you have to have 100 shares of the underlying. In this case, Palantir, 25.35, you have to have 100 shares. And if you're selling it for a strike price of, let's say, 30, you are agreeing to give up your 100 shares at $30, which means you would still make that $5 difference. But you're giving it up to someone who is buying a call, which is what the first thing I just talked about, at $30. And so for them to buy a call, you need to sell the call. There's 100 shares that need to be exchanged. That's why it's called a covered call, because you have to have 100 shares of collateral to cover the call. And so you get a premium from the buyer when you sell the call. You get that today that goes into your brokerage today when you sell that call, but you are contractually obligated to give up those shares if it runs above the strike price, given the expiration date that you selected. And so if that happens, you have to give up those calls. So people sell calls assuming that Palantir or whatever stock is not going to get above that level, which means you keep the premium and you keep the shares. So it's a way to generate income on your shares. People buy the calls assuming that the sellers are wrong and that the stock will run to the levels they want it to run at. And therefore, there is a lot more reward for the risk you take when you buy the call. You know, you're talking about double, triple, quadruple percentage gains. Whereas if you sell the call, you're not really making that much gains, but you are collecting premium, but it's much more safer because the odds of the shares getting to some elevated level are probably lower. And therefore you get to keep the shares and keep the premium as well. And that's buying and selling calls. So for Palantir, obviously, when the stock's running up or HIMs or anything, the premiums are going to get higher because people are willing to pay more, given the stock has run up. So what I did on Robinhood at $8 was I bought calls, because at $8 the risk reward to me made sense, and I bought calls. Now at 22, selling calls is not the craziest idea, because the idea that it runs to like 45 or 35, it's a little tough to imagine. It could happen, but selling calls is probably more opportunistic versus buying calls here, even if it can continue to run up. But if you buy a call at 22 and it runs to 35, obviously you'll still make a decent amount of money. You guys are still talking about the lamb chops. I can't believe I forgot. Does anyone eat lambs? I really asked that question, dude. I really asked that question. Do you think Palantir can dip to 23? I want to get it after this run. 100% I could dip to 23. Absolutely can dip to 20. Given the price action, 1,000% it could come back to 23. But it could also stay elevated at this 25 level as well, I think the broader market would have to see a little bit of some turbulence to see this thing come back down to 22, 21. But 23 is possible just on a random day, If they could get a downgrade tomorrow, it falls. I mean, Palantir's been lucky. They've been getting nothing but upgrades, quite frankly. All the analysts have us basically at this price target at 25, which has been really good for Palantir. The only guy is Rishi, who has us at $9, which, no one really respects it too much. But outside of that, it's been doing pretty well from an analyst perspective. Dell's up almost 8%. Yeah, Dell's continuing to run. Again, their CEO. I think we should play a little bit of the CEO interview. So we talked about him selling stock, but we should listen, given the stock's up, of what else he had to say for AI. Yeah, let's play this clip of him talking about their AI potential.
From the New York
All right, here we go.
Stock Exchange, we're in the special bond room, is Michael Dell, the founder and CEO of Dell Technologies, coming off of a big quarter, a beat and a raise. Michael Dell, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Sarah. Great to be with you.
How transformational is AI for your company right now?
I think if you step back and you think about what's going on, we're kind of moving from calculating and computing towards cognition. And that's a pretty big change for the industry. We've been doing the calculating thing for about 50 years. And, with AI and generative AI, we're basically creating intelligence. And so how big is the market for that? It's pretty big. What do you need to do it? Well, you need data, right? And you need compute, you need memory and storage and networking. These are all the things that we do. So our company was kind of built for this moment. And so it is a great opportunity for us, for sure.
I was going to say, you've seen so many technology cycles since you founded this company in 1984. Where does this generative AI revolution sit in terms of just how different it is?
It's certainly as big as any of the other big waves.
Is it bigger?
It certainly could be. When I think about the internet, which is, go back to, the mid-1990s, it kind of feels like that, except it's happening maybe 10 times faster, because now, 5 billion people kind of instantly have access to AI. And there's so much data and so much computing power that's becoming available that, it's getting used rapidly around the world. And the benefits are significant. That's why you see companies investing heavily to, create this opportunity.
So you said your company is built for it, and investors have gotten excited. I mentioned the stock performance, but then last quarter, stock sold off almost 20% after some questions about profitability. Did the market get it wrong?
Well, you mentioned the stock performance, year to date, and certainly, the stock has been performing well generally. I think, look, our business is doing well. You mentioned in the first quarter, we did quite well. Our enterprise business, our ISG business, grew 22%. The server and networking portion of the business grew 42%. And the demand for AI servers and networking is tremendous. We're installing, very large clusters with customers around the world. And I think we're really just at the beginning of this demand wave. And if you think back to what our core business is, one of the big businesses that we're in is data, right? And the amount of data that's being created in the world is not slowing down. Every 7 or 8 months, the amount of data in the world doubles, and that number is probably shrinking. And we store and protect and manage more data than any company in the world. This comes from our EMC acquisition and work that we've been doing at Dell for a long time. Put all that together, this is a tremendous opportunity for us. Because now AI is bringing that data to life.
If you believe him on the overall market for data, which obviously is increasing, and you believe Dell can capitalize on that, then there you go. That is Michael Dell's bull case for Dell. All right, so we're going to end off the stream there. I had to have a little fun on Twitter. So remember when I tweeted that screenshot of buying Rocket Lab? Yeah, now I'm coming back and I'm saying you're all welcome. Although no one said thank you, you're all welcome. I didn't mention Rocket Lab dipped like 5% after I bought it, but now I'm taking advantage of taking credit for Rocket Lab going up 11%. So there you go. We got some nice 11% gains on Rocket Lab. All right, word of the day. Let's do this. I'm sad we don't have the market open tomorrow, guys. We still have the market closed, so I'll be back at 3:45. ISOM is the word of the day.
ISOM.
Pleasant to look at. Interesting. ISOM. The ISOM sunset over the mountains took everyone's breath away. His ISOM smile made him the star of every family photograph. ISOM. Interesting. Huh. I never thought this would be a word to describe pleasant to look at. It makes sense. You're taking I and putting some. Becky is certainly ISOM. That is 100% correct. So is Morgan, who followed me on Twitter the other day. I gotta get on CNBC just to talk to Morgan. That would be awesome. ISOM. I mean, imagine telling someone you're very ISOM. I feel like it is kind of creepy, as June says. Darling, you are so ISOM today. Like, no, dude, that sounds like sounds weird, bro. It is. I don't think that was. I think that's why no one uses that word, ISOM. Like, just say it. Just say beautiful or something. All right, so Palantir 25.35, Robinhood right here at 21.99, SoFi 651, Rocket Lab 480 up 10% on the day. Lam Research $1,000, HIMS 25.18. Market cooling off just a little bit. CleanSpark down 1%. Bitcoin again below 65,000. It was at 65.4. Now it's at 64.7. That's why Robinhood right here below $22. So trying to deal with Bitcoin going up and down. Oracle's up 2%. Taiwan Semi, wow, up 3.7%. Taiwan Semi, $953 billion market cap. Incredible. Nvidia, 133. Robinhood right back up to 22. And then Palantir here, 25.37 on the day. Okay. And then the S&P is at 546.99. So basically that's flat on the day. All right, cool. That's it. I will be back 3:45. We'll have a longer stream since we'll be gone for tomorrow. Damn, that sucks, bro. Forgot the market's closed. All right, so spend time with your families tomorrow. Go for a walk or something, I guess. I'll be pontificating more jokes to be able to deploy on this market. Maybe we'll do a stream. Maybe we'll just get not in the morning, but maybe we'll just get a guest and we'll talk about something tomorrow. ISOM is the Palantir stock chart. Yes, 100%. All right, guys. I'll see you all at 3:45. Thank you all for being here. Hope you guys have a good day. It's Tuesday, and we'll keep going from there. Bye, everyone. Have a good one. Oh, speaking of magic, look what came in the mail yesterday, folks. Look what came in the mail. We got the cards. Now, look, you guys know I told you I used to do cards, right? Only someone who has worked with cards before can do this. See that? You think it looks easy. Most people can't do that. Most people cannot hold a deck of cards and do this. Most people cannot do that, dude. Try doing it with your deck of cards. It takes a lot of practice to be able to do what I just did with the cards. Oh, you guys want to see shuffle? All right, let me show you the shuffle. I want people to realize I know how to do this card stuff, dude. Like I did cards for a long time, bro. This is part of the world. All right, ready? I know how to do cards, bro. I know how to do cards. I know how to do this stuff. I know how to do this. I used to play, rest in peace to my grandpa, but when my dad owned the liquor store, for about 3 years straight, I spent in the back with my grandpa about 3 years, every day after school, I would get home. I would get to the store. I would stay at the store for like 3 hours. I would get to the store at like 3:30, from like 4 o'clock to like 7 o'clock every day. We played an Indian card game called Seep. I don't know if you guys have heard it before. SEEP. I think there's an American. I think the American version of it is called Sweep, but it's called Seep. SEEP, and it's one of the. It's a gambling game, but it's one of the most fun games ever. And he taught me how to get really good at it. But I played cards for years, dude, and so I learned how to like work with the cards, play with the cards, shuffle the cards, all that stuff. I mean, dude, I know a lot of tricks, and so I'm excited to get back into the card game. So look at that. Look how smooth that was, dude. I know it. Now the thing is, I don't know poker, and I don't know. I know a little bit of blackjack, but I suck at it. But I don't know poker, and so part of learning Magic again is trying to get good at like poker. Because I want to actually go to Vegas and know what the hell I'm doing. Like I played poker before. I know like things like the full house and stuff and like a flush, but I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it all. So, yeah. Oh, let me show you guys another. I don't know how to do the single-handed cut, but look at this. So look, you see this card right here, 6 of spades. Look what I can do right here. I'm going to shuffle. See if I still remember. Yep. Here we go. So this right here is called I forgot what it's called, but it's a fake shuffle. So what I'm doing right here, it looks like I'm shuffling the deck, right? 6 of spades still on the bottom. So if I say, hey, pick a card, right? And then put it anywhere on the deck, or let's say I say pick a card, right? You pick ace of clubs. And then I say, hey, all right, put it on top of the deck. So you drop it on top of the deck. So I don't know what the card is. It's on top of the deck. I haven't seen it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to shuffle. And then I do this. Okay, I'm messing it up right now. These cards are really sweaty right now because they're like a brand new deck. So I got to work it in. Ace of clubs should still be on top. Let me see if I can do it smoother. So again, dun, dun, dun. It looks like I shuffled, right? I'll do it another time. It looks like I'm literally shuffling the deck. And ace of clubs still there. I do this, bro. I do this. I know the cards. Now I just got to get good at poker. All right, cool. That's it. I'll see you guys at 3:45. I will, I'll use my jokes on you guys, and you guys fulfill my dreams of being a comedian. You're going to have to fulfill more of my dreams. So thank you, everybody, because you are fulfilling my dreams. But my dreams of being a magician, you guys are going to get the tricks on stream, and then eventually I'll be on a big stage one day. Could you imagine a show of magic, comedy, and the stock market? I mean, you never know, dude. You never know. Who knows? We'll see. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys 3:45. Bye, everyone.